Okay. Welcome everyone to this meeting of the full council. This meeting is being live streamed to the council's YouTube channel. So welcome to any of the members of the public who may be watching remotely. The recording of this meeting will remain online for 4 years. If you are present, so we're getting an echo.
Someone's watching it on YouTube at the same time.
So if you can just bear with us for a minute whilst we sort out the echo. Okay, members, sorry, we'll carry on. Hopefully the issue's been resolved. We'll find out in a few seconds. So just to say the record of the meeting will remain online for 4 years. If you are present and making a representation to the meeting, then you're consenting to this and to the use of the recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. I'd also like to just say welcome to everyone in the public gallery today. As you will be aware, there are temporary measures that have recently come into force to increase security at the council meetings. Whilst this is obviously regrettable and the council remains committed to making decisions in open session, it is essential that meetings and council business can be carried out safely and efficiently and without disruption. So just to say, in the event of a persistent disturbance, which I'm sure won't happen today, but we will have to adjourn the meeting and ask anyone causing the disruption to leave the chamber. Please also be aware that CCTV and audio recording is now in operation, and the footage and recordings will be held by the council for 5 months. Please also note that that a fire alarm test is not expected, so if an alarm does sound, you should make your way to the nearest exit immediately. Okay, I think we've got the sound issue sorted. So moving on to item 1 on the agenda, that is apologies. So I have apologies from councillors Beale, Oliver, Tailford and Willingham. Are there any other apologies to note, please? No? Okay. So moving on to item 2 then, declarations of interest. Any members have any declarations of interest to make? Councillor Horwood.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I need to declare an interest under item 10 on the Leckhampton with Warden Hill Neighbourhood Plan because I'm the chair of the Leckhampton with Warden Hill Neighbourhood Planning Group. So I will have to declare an interest and withdraw on that item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Horwood. Councillor Clucas, did you indicate?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. To declare an interest, which is not directly pertinent to today, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that is in relation to my role as a founder director of a multi-academy trust in Gloucestershire.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clucas. I don't see anyone else indicating, so we will move on to item 3. That's the minutes of the last meeting. So just to bring to every member's attention, there is a set of minutes from the extraordinary meeting held back on the September the 28th, which haven't been formally approved by the council. So first of all, can we vote on to approve or otherwise the minutes from the 28th of September? I assume if anyone wants to make any comments, you'll indicate first. And if not, we'll just do on a show of hands all those in favour of approving the minutes. Thank you, members. That's unanimous. And now to the minutes of our previous meeting on the 23rd of February. Again, if anyone has any issues to raise, Councillor Atherstone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to note on agenda item 10 with regards to the housing revenue account, you can hear me now, yeah. There's a slight sort of typo because I don't know whether it's how I delivered it, which might have been confusing, but it's with regards to the kitchen programme. The first financial year, this financial year coming, 500 replacement kitchens are planned, and then it's 1,000 every year for 4 years. It says 1,000 over 4 years, so I just want 1,000 per year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Atherstone. That's noted. Councillor Harman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a small correction. On the last meeting, on the substantive vote on the budget, under abstentions, although I had reservations about the Liberal Democrat budget, I actually only abstained once and not twice. Because I'm down there, it says abstentions, and I'm down twice. I think I'm only allowed to do it once, I think. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harman. I think that's noted as well. Okay, we should actually vote on that now. Jumping ahead of myself. So everyone in favour then of the minutes from the 23rd of February meeting, barring those amendments? Thank you, councillors. That's unanimous. Okay, moving on now. Item 4, communications by the Mayor. Just a short one from me, just to acknowledge that this is the last full council meeting of the current council year. So I just wanted to, just personally just say thank you to all the members who have contributed to all of the meetings that we've had here, and I think I just wanted to say thank you for not giving me too hard a time in the chair, and thank you for all your contributions over the year, and also just to obviously note that with elections coming as well, there will be some councillors standing down and others who may not be rejoining the council. So I just wanted to put on record my thanks to everyone for certainly the last year, but all of your contributions in your times as councillors. I'm going to hand over on that note to Councillor Hay for communications by the leader. I know it's traditional, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but for some outgoing councillors to make some brief comments at this point. But I'll hand over to Councillor Hay first, and then we'll move to that, open to the floor, sorry. So that concludes communications by the Mayor. Item 5, communications by the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Mayor. So just a few from me, and I promise I won't make it as long as I did last time. Just by way of an update to the Household Recycling Centre booking system that has now come to the end of its second week of this booking system. And it's just to say that, one of the bits of feedback has been the lack of ability to make same-day appointments, which actually will be rectified by the end of this week. So you will be able to make same-day bookings as you can with the County Council. And of course, the usage will be monitored and reported back to the relevant Cabinet member. I attended a presentation by Tom Pursglove, Minister of State for the Home Office, on the 12th of March, where the Minister announced a new Ukraine extension scheme to begin in early 2025, which should be providing 2.5 years of sanctuary for Ukrainians currently living in the UK. And this scheme will retain Ukrainians' existing rights and entitlements. I do have a much fuller briefing, which I will share with Democratic Services to circulate to all members for information. In terms of Cheltenham Borough Homes, I'd like to update the Council that following positive tenant consultation, I intend to proceed with the decision that was delegated to me in the Cabinet report last October to confirm the decision to wind up Cheltenham Borough Homes as a company and to move forward with the transfer of housing services back into Cheltenham Borough Council. I'm pleased that the tenant consultation underlined that our residents understand the reasons for bringing Cheltenham Borough Homes back in-house, and they gave valuable feedback on how they would like to see services improve. I'm grateful for the role that the ONS and the Scrutiny Task Group continue to play in supporting and overseeing that transfer, and I can update members that we expect the transfer of Cheltenham Borough Home staff to CBC will take place on the 1st of July this year. This allows for all necessary planning to take place to make sure that we arrange as smooth a transfer as possible so that our residents and tenants and leaseholders notice the least difference and they'll see very little change. So it should be seamless. These things don't always happen, but we're working very hard to make sure that that is the way that we go. We will keep members updated as the transition programme progresses, particularly around making sure that tenants have a strong voice in influencing and shaping services. Most of you will remember that we had a peer review some months ago, or back in the summer last year. And 2 weeks ago, we had that peer review team, corporate peer team, came back for their follow-up visit. All members were invited to meet the peer team, and I am grateful to those councillors who took the time to give their feedback. Normally, that follow-up visit happens around 12 months, but in this case, our visit was 9 months after our full peer review. And I'm very pleased to report that the peer team were very impressed with just how much progress we have made as a council, particularly in our work to bring Cheltenham Borough Homes back in-house. But they were also pleased to see the progress on other areas of their recommendations, particularly around Golden Valley and place leadership and our organisational culture. Overall, they acknowledged just how much we have moved forward, and they also acknowledged, which was, as I do peer reviews myself, you don't often hear this, but it was actually the lead peer on that acknowledged and said what a fantastic group of officers who are working so hard for our communities that we've got here at Cheltenham Borough Council. As leader, I always talk about Team Cheltenham, and I think the recent visit from the peer team just underlines what a strong team we have. I'd like to thank that peer team, councillors and officers, and as leader, I'm delighted that we had such a positive follow-up visit. We expect that the report from the peer team will arrive shortly, but I did want to just give you that update in advance, because this is the last council meeting, and then it will actually be published, so it will be there for public consumption. Lastly, I'd like to thank all those members who are not seeking re-election in May this year, and wish everybody who is good luck in that election. We have 4 councillors that I'm aware of standing down, and it would be, if you wish, there is the opportunity to say a few words. 2 minutes, I think I've been told, is the deadline for that. But if you wish to say a few words, but what I would like to just finish on is to say that collectively those 4 have given 56 years in total to our town and our communities that they represent, which I think is fantastic. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Haig. So, can you steal your microphone? Sorry. So, any members who wish to address the council, please indicate. Sorry, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Leader, for allowing me 2 minutes. I'm a lousy timekeeper. I entered politics as a young Liberal with Lloyd Surgener when I was 16. I wasn't even old enough to vote for another 5 years. But I've always been a Liberal, and 2 things made me want to be a Liberal councillor. I was horrified by corporal punishment, and I suffered it in my school. I went to 2 church schools. They taught me right from wrong. I was right and they were wrong, because they administered corporal punishment like it was going out of fashion. It did no good. And capital punishment because of a man called Ludovic Kennedy, who wrote a book. He was a Liberal, but never an MP. called 10 Riddington Place about Timothy Evans, who was hung for something he never did. And I campaigned for that over the years, and it took a hell of a long time to get them on the statute book. I said I went to school, and at the prize giving, or end of term leavers assembly, the headmaster used to read out the punishment book, which he made great show of. And he stood there one day and he said, "This year is a record year. I've only had to punish 5 children. Pity Fisher's 3 of them." And it didn't work, it doesn't work, and if anybody tells you it did me no harm, just ask them why they allow somebody who's not even a member of the family or anybody to punish their child with a stick. It's not acceptable. But on the lighter side, I joined the council by mistake. I never wanted to be a councillor because I was working, I had a fairly top job, worked hard, long hours, and a family. But I was visited by Steve Jordan and one other councillor one night and said, "You've got to stand, Byrne, but you're not going to win because the person we had to stand here has joined the police force and they're not eligible." And the rest is history. But any new councillor coming in, don't accept the norm. Question all authority, otherwise nothing will change. That's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. And true to form, you were just a little bit over there, but I thought we'd allow a little bit to... I think you've earned it. There we go. Councillor Wilkinson, I've got you next.
Thank you, Mayor. I've enjoyed every minute of these past 10 years as a councillor. I turned 40 2 days ago, which means that I've spent pretty much the whole of my 30s as a member of this authority. My friends tell me that is an eccentric life choice for a 30-year-old. I think it's been a privilege. And I'd like to thank all fellow members, senior officers, and there are too many senior officers to name individually, but they all know who they are, and Cheltenham people for the fact that I've enjoyed these 10 years. And I'd also like to specifically thank the councillors with whom I've shared a ward for the last 6 years, Rowena Hay, the leader, and for the 4 before that, Tim Harman. We weren't on the same party, we still aren't, but we worked well together, and I appreciated that. Now, it's impossible to please everyone all of the time, but I firmly believe that Cheltenham punches way above its weight, and it has a bright future, not just because of the work of this authority, but because of the work of our partners and because of the work of so many people in Cheltenham. We have a really rich seam of community groups. But despite large cuts from above, we're doing so much. We're investing in homes for local people, affordable homes for local people. We're investing in our plans for thousands of jobs at the Golden Valley development. And also, we take part in initiatives like the No Child Left Behind scheme, and we support the local food network. It's deplorable that we have a local food network, but the fact this authority works with others to make sure that people who can't pay for their own food are able to access it is really important, and it happens very quietly every day. And we're doing it in a way that helps make progress on fighting the climate emergency as well, and that's something that I've taken as one of my key issues since the time I've been a councillor. How many other councils of this size are delivering large-scale carbon-neutral housing? How many are delivering grants for businesses to cut their own carbon emissions? And how many are delivering a scheme like the Cheltenham Green Deal? I think probably not very many. And while many authorities have reduced their services to the statutory minimum, we do so much more. The Household Recycling Centre being a key example. We push the boundaries at the restrictive frameworks within which local government is forced to act, and Councillor Fisher is entirely right. We must ask more and more questions, and members and officers, I hope, will continue to do that. But there are always challenges to come, not least the next round of public sector austerity, which the Chancellor has let us know is going to happen. I regret that I won't be around for those, but I look forward to watching the future progress from the outside. I promise that I will be neither a stranger nor a spectator.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Britta, did you indicate?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I think I'd like to thank the residents of both Bennell and the Reddings for supporting me for 22 years. It's been an honour and a privilege. I'd also like to take special thanks to my ward councillor, Mike Collins, for his support, especially over the last couple of years from a personal point of view. And that also goes the same for the Lib Dem group. There's been so many ups and downs, and I'd like to think there's been more ups in recent years than downs, despite the fact of central government making things extremely difficult for this council. But I wish every councillor the best for the future, and thank you finally to officers that have supported me in doing my role for the last 22 years. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Britta. Councillor McCloskey.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to miss this place, and I'm going to miss some of you as well. Delighted to see that Councillor Payne is back with us. John, you've been missed, and you made such a fantastic contribution. I have to say, over my time on the council, I have been totally impressed by the dedication of the officers that we've got, particularly through COVID. And sadly, as a councillor, I've not met many of them, but they've just silently got on with their work, just making sure the cogs moved round. I think I must give a shout out particularly though to Democratic Services, to Bev, Judith and all her amazing team. As chair of certain committees, they have kept me afloat and it's all run smoothly. But I think my particular thanks needs to go to Claire, our mother hen, I think, is the only who steps in whenever anything is needed, as clearly this time. She just is quite going beyond and above the course of duty. And with that in mind, there are two things I just wanted to talk about of my time here. Outside by the War Memorial, I was privileged to be there when we unveiled the plaque to one of Cheltenham's Victoria Cross holders. Richard Ansley West, Victoria Cross, DSO and Bar Military Cross. He fought in the Boer War and he then joined up at the beginning of the First World War. And he was in the cavalry, and as time progressed, he found himself in charge of a company of light tanks. And on the first day, he led those tanks into battle on horseback. Just think about that. But he was able to pinpoint targets they would have missed. He had his horse shot from underneath him twice during the battle, and still his orderly and himself managed to kill 5 of the enemy and capture 7 prisoners of war. And that sadly, about a month later, he did it once too often. But he's a remarkable example, I think, to us all. He's also a remarkable example of the way the paradigm of military improvements goes. And it's a reminder that leadership is not just about vision and manifestos. It's about having the organisational grip to actually get things done. And he managed to do that. My second experience over there was on the first anniversary of the Ukrainian war. A young Ukrainian woman sang the Ukrainian national anthem, and we all put sunflowers around the War Memorial. It was a remarkable occasion. It was a moment when, instead of having the usual Battle of Britain or whatever, it was like going from black and white movies to full colour surround sound in the here and now. We've got drones blowing up tanks and battleships. That's our current reality. And I worry about the future of our young people and what they will have to sacrifice for our tomorrows. My battle will continue. I will be canvassing for a parliamentary candidate called Wilkinson. Not this one, Jenny Wilkinson, who is in Kenilworth and Southern. With me on her team, what can go wrong? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCloskey, and well, thank you all councillors for your contributions there, and indeed over the previous combined 56 years. That's Absolutely fantastic. So thank you. Okay, so moving on now to item 6, that's to receive petitions. I'm not aware of any. If no members are indicating, we will move on to item 7. That is public questions. So we have 3 public questions that have been received. I don't know if any of the people who have raised questions are here. Fantastic. I'll just run down the list, and what we would like to do is take the original question and answer as read, if that's acceptable, but you're obviously free then to ask a follow-up supplementary question in relation to the answer that's been received. So the first question is from Nick Peconen. I don't believe we have Nick, they're not here. So question 2 then is from Tess Beck to the Cabinet Member for Customer and Regulatory Services, Councillor Horwood. If you just, hopefully there's a microphone for you, just bear with us 1 second.
Okay, this is the second question regarding the Article 4 HMO policy. Thank you for the response. I and others have been asking these questions from our councillors since the appeal on 6 Marsh Lane was allowed in mid-December last year. And it's frustrating that it's taken a public question to get an answer. I'm also disappointed we have to wait till June for the results of the HMO survey carried out last May, June to be actually published, which leaves the policy open to challenge. My question is, were the council's officers unaware until it was pointed out by SFP planning consultants and the planning inspectorate that they would be required to make the results of any HMO survey public for the policy to be enforceable?
First of all, can I thank her for asking these questions? I mean, it's an important issue. It's the reason the Lib Dem Council brought forward the HMO policy in the first place was because it addresses quite an important issue in St Paul's Ward. I see Councillor Walklett is in the gallery as well, who is instrumental in that, and Councillor Lewis, I know, has also raised this issue with me. She asked quite a technical question about whether the officers were aware of a particular sort of effectively almost legal issue. I'm afraid I don't have the answer to that at my fingertips, obviously, but I would happily undertake to write to her and let her know the answer, and I will ask officers after this meeting and get her the answer she wants.
Thank you. And then the question regarding Hardwick Green, the part of Hardwick campus. My supplementary question is again, why did it take submitting a public question to council to get an answer to this question, which we've been asking since we first became aware of Hardwick campus being disposed of? I appreciate councillors are busy, we're all busy, but a more prompt answer would have been easier and less administratively.
Well, this question puzzles me a little because it doesn't. I mean, the local green space policy is one that I initiated at national level, and we were well aware of it when the Cheltenham plan was voted through in 2020. And there were a large number of local green spaces, and this was proposed, I think, possibly again by Councillor Walklett. And I know former Councillor Lansley supported it. I know many other councillors have advocated for it. And there was a decision, I understand from officers, taken around January 2018. I'm afraid that was before I was a councillor, let alone a portfolio holder, so I can't explain the precise reasons for it, but which seemed to remove Marsh Lane from the list of local green spaces. It was, as she says, for the reason that it was in educational use. I must admit, from this perspective, I find that a slightly puzzling reason, since I'm not quite sure what a field is doing in educational use. And actually, that's not, as far as I know, a criterion on which you should necessarily rule out a local green space designation. But the way the designation works is that it is only designated during the plan-making process. So the next opportunity to designate it, which I know again has widespread support, is during the strategic and local plan process, which has only just started. So we've just had the very earliest consultation in the broadest possible terms on the strategic and local plan. I certainly put in a submission which advocated for new local green spaces, including Hardwick Green. I know from colleagues in the Lib Dems that JJ Potapici, and I'm going to have to look up his name, I'm sorry, Rob, I didn't know how to pronounce it actually, I beg your pardon. Rob, anyway, with the interesting surname, have both also put in submissions, and I think from our correspondence by email, I think you may have done as well, which is very welcome.
Well, no, because I got a reply on the Monday evening, and Tuesday evening I put a submission in and got the spinning wheel of doom,
Okay.
unfortunately.
I think she may have had technical difficulties, but I passed on her email to officers, actually, and I hope that will be taken into account. So I think there is widespread support for it being a local green space. My personal support, shame as it is, does not guarantee success because obviously the strategic and local plan has to go through a proper process. It may be challenged at examination, may even have legal challenge, and there is an assessment process, as there was last time, on whether a particular green space meets the criteria in the National Planning Policy Framework. So that proper process does have to be gone through. But certainly with that level of community support and with such cross-party support, I hope that that's a very promising area for possible designation. And it didn't require a public question to establish that. I think that's a long-standing campaign. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Horwood, and thank you, Tess, for your questions. Moving on now to item 8, that's members' questions. Now, we have 25 members' questions, so if I could just ask members to be mindful of that and keep questions brief and answers brief. We only have 30 minutes for the item. I would like to get through all of them. So with that in mind, question 1, Councillor Harman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I thank the Cabinet Member for his reply? I think he knows that it's an issue that I and lots of people in the town feel quite strongly about. We could be doing better on street cleaning. A suggestion from me, would he look at asking each member of this council, all 40 of us, to nominate perhaps 1 or 2 roads, their own ward, that might need attention so that there can be a programme agreed for cleaning? It's a simple idea. It might be worth trying it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harman, for that really interesting suggestion, which I would like to take up. Yes, I will do. And thank you for suggesting it.
Thank you, Councillor Doby. Question 2 is Councillor Harman.
I will be telling you a couple on Park Ward. Thank you. And to Councillor Wilkerson, just briefly, so I think from his reply, at the moment there is no current tourism strategy. There's one on the way, if that's basically what he's saying. Would he like to say when he thinks we'll have a full strategy in place and the resources that might be behind it? Thank you.
Following instructions from above, not above the heavens, Tim. So the instruction from government departments was to follow national best practice, which was to look to set up a regional or a sub-regional group, and the LVEP that's referenced there is currently meeting to develop that strategy. The terms of reference have been agreed, so has the initial steps towards that strategy. I would expect the strategy to be in place sometime after I have ceased to be in this portfolio.
Question 3 is Councillor Seacombe.
Thank you. A slightly fuzzy answer. However, I'm going to ask questions on an allied but slightly different topic. Do you have any idea when the alternative method of powering anything that goes into the gardens is like the wheel and like the ice rink, if there is one in the future? Do you have any knowledge of when the electricity might be connected?
The delivery of that infrastructure is not within my portfolio, it's within the assets portfolio, so Councillor Jeffreys will know more. I'm sure he will be happy to send you an update. For those in the gallery and for the rest of members present, it's basically in the hands of National Grid. because they've got to work out all the technical stuff. And anyone who's worked with National Grid in the past will know that this is an extremely complex process and they have very many levels of checks and balances.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Question 4 is Councillor Seacombe again.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson, you do mention that there is tourist information at the municipal office's desk. Are you suggesting that those who are working at those desks and answer questions, because that's not what I understand that their job is, and they won't have the depth of knowledge that tourists might actually want to hear?
There's plenty of information available in the municipal office's reception to answer a whole range of questions, and that information does include contact details, phone numbers, website addresses, which can be accessed from the municipal office's reception.
Thank you. Councillor Seacombe, question 5. Okay. And that's 6 as well. So that takes us to question 7. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. What I'd like to know as a supplementary is, are the Cheltenham Liberal Democrats committed to keeping the Swindon Road Household Recycling Centre open for at least the next 2 years, should they remain in control of the council after May? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. I'd like to gaze into my crystal ball and let you know what central government's going to do to us in the next 2 years. So I can't give that commitment. But it's quite clear and evident that this council is committed to that recycling centre. It's the only one district that has one in the country, I believe, from talking to my colleague. But I wouldn't want to predict what central government are going to do financially. Equally, you could have a chance that it sneezes and before you know it, the economy is in turmoil again. So I can't give you that. A straight answer is yes, I would like to, but I think it would be wrong of me to do so at this time.
Okay, so Councillor Flynn, question 8.
Thank you. Supplementary for question 8. Will the Cabinet member reassure the public that that the number of booking slots available won't be reduced over time to restrict access, thereby forcing residents to use the county sites more often and giving weight to an argument to close the Swindon Road site? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That's not even entered anybody's thought process at any point, at any time, as far as I'm aware. So I can give all members of the town so far that reassurance.
Question 9, Councillor Flynn.
I mean, from the answer, it looks like the current ambition is still 35% affordable with 70% social rented. However, Councillor Collins states that social rent has the most negative impact on land value. Is he therefore saying that having poor people living in the new development will affect the council's return on investment and its decision on the number of social rent units that will be built? Thank you.
Here we go. Me and my button problems again, sorry. I'd like to thank the councillor for a supplementary question. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I provided a fully comprehensive and factual answer to your question. I'd like to draw attention to the line in my answer. This is a 10-year planned project, so it would make, for me to make a cast-iron commitment on the subject of exact affordable housing mix would be irresponsible. I'm not prepared to do that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Collins. Question 10, Councillor Flynn.
Thank you. After submitting my question, I discovered that there was a Lib Dem motion coming in on the nature emergency, but I hadn't had sight of it. But I did email the leader requesting to second the motion. I received a response, but it didn't actually answer the question, so I emailed again and I never received a response to that. And I'm very keen for any motion on a nature emergency to be fully cross-party. Therefore, Councillor Horwood, please would you allow me to second your motion on a nature emergency?
I believe that's to Councillor Hay.
I think, Councillor Flynn, when you emailed, and I did respond to you, as you rightly say, I also in between you sending the second email and me not responding, you had decided to ask this question in any event, and I did nothing with that because you had decided to ask this question in particular. So, and in terms of the seconder, that will be, we can bring that out through the debate if you like, but actually at this point in time we've got two very passionate people. Councillor Hallwood brought this forward and Councillor Pinniger very much wants to second it. So it's not that we don't want to do it cross-party, but we have two passionate members that actually the Lib Dems brought this motion forward. As all of us will have done, we all received that email requesting that we did that, and we just happen to have responded immediately to that. So, but I'm sure I can't see any member not actually being wanting to support this motion when we get to that point of debate. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Flynn, question 11.
Thank you. Thank you for your very long response to this question. However, the answer seems to address what the government could do, not what this council does, which on the face of it seems very little. Previously, the council had a housing renewal policy and offered grants and loans. Government guidance on this said that the government would consider that an authority was failing in its duty as a housing enabler and in its responsibility to consider the condition of the local private sector stock if it did not make some provision for private sector housing assistance. Does the council have a current housing renewal policy, and if so, where can I find it, please? Because I spent a lot of time looking on the website and I can't find one. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Flynn, I missed a bit the policy bit you were asking for.
So it's a where's it gone? Housing renewal policy, which previously we've had them, and they allowed. It was the framework for which the council could lend money for health and safety loans for people who were living in private accommodation.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. I did provide the comprehensive answer, and it's a shame you didn't ask for that particular policy in your original question, or I would have dug that out for you. There must be a reason why I haven't updated that policy. I suspect it's down to government funding, as I probably alluded to in my answer. It was a comprehensive things of things we could do, or this government could do, because I think fuel poverty is a really, really important topic. You know, people out in our town are choosing between eating and heating, and that is a sad state of affairs. It really is. The policy you've asked for, I'll inquire with officers as to whether we still have that policy, and I'll get you a copy of it if it's still valid.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Fifield now for question 12.
Nothing on 12, but I'll move to 13. That's all right. Firstly, I just want to say to Councillor Wilkinson, I genuinely wish him all the best, and for whatever endeavours he has in the future. I know we've had our disagreements over the years, but I generally wish you all the best. So on this question, I'm just a bit surprised by the abruptness of the answer. I'm a bit concerned, as we are financially liable for the Cheltenham Trust. Have you had any conversations about that particular topic?
Thank you for your well wishes. The answer is there have obviously been discussions, but it would not be right for this council to micromanage the day-to-day flows of revenue within the Cheltenham Trust. That isn't how our management agreement with the Cheltenham Trust works.
Councillor Fifield, question 14.
Nothing on 14, but 15, which sort of matches number 13 to a degree. I mean, I'm just asking for information. I'm not asking for you to make any executive decisions. And I've had lots of residents tell me that they've had events cancelled at the pump room. And I just want to know whether there's been any consideration for the lost revenue that would be pretty useful if the emergency works were to happen again.
The same answer applies as the last question. So we do not manage the day-to-day flows of revenue within the Cheltenham Trust. That is a matter for the Cheltenham Trust.
Okay, question 16, Councillor Fifield again.
No more questions from me.
Okay, so that's 16, 17 and 18. Question 19 then is Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Cabinet members, for your answers. I have no further questions on 19, 20 and 21, but I do have supplementary on 22, please. So this is my question to Cabinet Member Peter Jeffries. I take on board what you're saying about it's extremely difficult to enforce a free parking slot in the town centre to encourage people into the town. And I also accept we are trying to encourage people out of their cars. But would you agree to carry out a feasibility to see about putting in a half-hour or 45-minute slot, free parking in the afternoon at a fixed time to allow young mums who, OK, shouldn't be using their cars, but they've collected their children from school, and very often they just need to pop into town for one or two little things, and it might just help the shops in the town centre as well. That's what I ask. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson, for your question. I'm not quite sure it's my job to help young mums per se, but I take on board what you're saying. There is a car parking strategy review, and I'll feed that particular point into it. But I'm a bit cautious, as I said in my answer originally, about 3 half hours, because it's about the cost of implementation, may outweigh the actual benefit to the town itself. But I will take on board your comments and feed them into that review. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Nelson, question 23. Sorry, is there any...
Thank you, Mayor. No further questions.
Fantastic. That concludes the members' questions section then. Item 9 is then the consideration of the petition. This is for to stop the sale of Idsall Drive, Card Park. So for this, we'll go to a report from the Cabinet Member for Finance and Assets, Councillor Jeffries. Sorry, apologies, members. I'm told that we should be going straight to a statement from the petition organiser. My apologies. So that's Councillor Fifield as the organiser, who has 5 minutes to speak on this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'd like to start off by thanking everybody who signed this petition, local councillors, Bassett Smith and Smith, for their support in getting these around 1,000 signatures. I'd also like to thank everybody in the gallery who's come tonight to actually see this debate, and I hope that it's good to see people getting involved in politics, and I know a lot of you helped me get the signatures as well, so I genuinely am thankful for that. So I don't know if you've read the petition statement, but we've got a clear ask here. The title is slightly misleading. We do, in some degree, want the sale of the car park to stop, but what we're calling for is overview and scrutiny to conduct a review and come up with new recommendations. That could include stopping the sale. It could include continuing the sale. And that's what you're voting on today. The report recommends that you vote it down, and I hope you'll listen to me and others about this. And I know Councillor Smith wants to talk about this as well. There is no doubt that the car park is a crucial part of Prestbury's local community, both socially and economically. And in the report, it only provides 2 risks for why you should not allow our petition to go through, and that is reputational damage, and this would hit the council's bottom line. I think, firstly, reputational damage is a bit bizarre. It doesn't seem to have considered the reputational damage of selling it, and this petition is indicative of the democratic necessity to have this debate and for councillors to listen here tonight and this afternoon. The argument about council's bottom line is a bit more interesting. It's quite fascinating to me that £100,000, not all of which will go to the borough council, in fact, is a very, very small amount of the overall budget of this council, and considering the massive economic and social benefits of this car park is completely disproportionate. It also doesn't really consider, the report, the fact that the economic benefit is already providing. It is the only car park that is free in that area that provides access to the local high street. Every single local owner of a business on that high street is against this sale. And I think that really needs to be considered here. And many of those people in the gallery as well are also against it, who are local residents who go to St Mary's Church and frankly are dismayed by the idea that the only key part of the car park, accessibility, is going to be taken away. So I think it's pretty clear here. The sale hasn't gone through. Borough councillors Smith and Bassett Smith have not been notified a sale has been finished. Anyone who's gone through selling a house or buying a house knows that it is not over until it is over and deeds have been exchanged. So there is still a chance to save this car park, to put it into review. And the prospective buyer, and I know that there is a buyer who is prospective on this, would, I think, understand why we might want to delay a few months to have a proper review. And if overview and scrutiny wants to come back with the same answer, it can do so. So that's what I'm putting down in front of you today. I'm providing you 2 clear paths. One is to review, to listen to the democratic necessity to review. to look at additional options to mitigate the problems of a prospective sale. And the other is just cracking on, not listening to the people of Prestbury, not listening to the petition, and doing massive damage to the local area of Prestbury. So I hope you will all make the right decision and vote down the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, so we now move on to the section where we can ask questions of the officers who drafted the report. Do we have any members wishing to ask questions? Councillor Wheeler.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In the petition, they say they have concerns over the evidence. Can I just ask officers if they could highlight to us the evidence that was given to this at the Cabinet meeting?
There we go. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. So we undertook a survey in the summer and autumn of 2022. So that was that involved on 14 separate days, not consecutive days, across both the summer holidays and term time. So across the summer and into September, in 5 time slots for each of those days. The number of cars in that car park was surveyed, and what we found was that at that point there was no instances across any of the time slots, across any of the 14 days that were surveyed, where there was no vacant spaces in the car park. So there was always vacant spaces available. And then likewise, what we also looked at was 23 on-street car parking spaces around the Prestbury area. Same again, so 4 time slots per day, same time slots, looking at how many vacant spaces were available for parking. And again, sorry, there was always vacancies, sorry, contradicted myself there on the first one. So there was always vacant spaces in the car park, and there was always vacant spaces on the street. So that was the set of evidence that we used to then form the survey report, which supported the Cabinet report that was approved in September.
Okay, Councillor Horwood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And can I actually just start by echoing one thing that Councillor Fifield said, which is to welcome so many people turning up into the gallery. Even if we aren't seeing eye to eye on everything, I think it's fantastic to see such good public participation. And certainly I've got friends in the gallery, so I've got to be careful what I say. I just want to ask, this may be actually more of a question for the monitoring officer than for the finance and assets team. Just about one argument that's been made in support of this petition on Councillor Fifield's website, or the Gloucestershire Conservatives website, where it says the administration at the council says it is strapped for cash. Well, that much we agree on. But it goes on to say, despite the Lib Dems increasing the amount of council allowances going to their own party, can the monitoring officer just confirm that it would be illegal for this council to give money to any political party, that allowances are paid to all councillors regardless of party, and that it is up to individual councillors to make their own decisions on whether they contribute to a political party or not? I think that ought to be clarified.
Councillor Horwood, sorry, I may have missed something here. This is nothing to do with the petition.
No, this is under the heading
itself.
No, the website I'm quoting is under the heading "Petition to Stop the Sale of Idsall Drive Car Park."
It is on the okay. Yes. In that case, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Horwood. Yeah, so just to clarify, obviously all members are entitled to an allowance known as the basic allowance. That's paid to every councillor within the authority, regardless of which political group or political party that they sit within. It would be completely against the rules for this council, against the law actually for this council to make direct contributions to any political party and to deduct anything directly at source from a member's allowance and divert that to a political party. And yeah, just to clarify, it is absolutely each member's own personal right to do with that allowance as they wish. If they wish to pay some of that over to a party, then of course they may do so, but that's an arrangement outside the council, not within it.
Okay, Councillor Fifield.
Can I just ask for a chance to clarify? The reference I made was meant, and I'm sorry if it implied, I absolutely implied no illegality, and I totally accept that. The reference was to the fact that there were 2 new cabinet positions made, which is way above the average of local authorities, and if you decided to, as a percentage of that, and decided to give more money to a party, and that's not illegal. Sorry, that's not illegal, but it is a point of clarification.
Thank you, councillors. I appreciate we're well into contentious territory here, and I appreciate if people do have a right of clarification if it's to correct something that's been said in the meeting. With that in mind, can we just be mindful, please, of how this debate proceeds? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. My learned friend over there nicked my question, stole my sandwiches, but I will extend it a little bit further. When we talked about the 14 days and the 5 time slots, can I just be precise? What were those 5 time slots, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the time slots were 8:30, 10:30, 12:30, 2:30, 4:30. Sorry, 6 time slots and 6 p.m. So 6 time slots per day. And across the days were both weekdays and weekend days.
Okay, councillors, do we have any other questions for the officers on this? I don't see anyone indicating. Right, so in that case, we will now go to Councillor Jeffreys, as I tried to jump the queue earlier on, so apologies for that. But Councillor Jeffreys, you have 5 minutes to make a statement on this.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm always happy to jump the gun if you let me, though, to be fair. Colleagues, the sale of the car park has actually been complete. Contracts were exchanged last week. Now, this petition came so late in the process, it actually arrived after we'd accepted an offer. So, firstly, there are 3 issues, as far as I can see. The people, our residents, the context and the politics. So first of all, I'm going to go into the context. At the budget meeting last month, I outlined the local authority funding crisis that we are navigating, but also a range of other sectors and areas that are in crisis. Now, I fully appreciate that Councillor Fifield was not in attendance at that meeting, so I'll paraphrase. The Conservative government have either broken or not fixed pretty much every public service. Now, because of the political choices of the Conservative government, this has resulted in a real terms reduction of our government funding to the tune of £13 million. Now, we've had to adapt as a council. And we've achieved this through several strands of work, one of those being proactive in our management of the town's assets, because effective asset management contributes hundreds of thousands of pounds to our capital revenue budgets, which underpins our services and investment in the town. And now let me come to the politics. As Councillor Hallwood rightly points out, the petition statement bears no resemblance to what is before members today. Completely bears no resemblance. And it's quite possible that residents in Cheltenham have signed this petition under false pretences, because in my view, some of the words that are used in the petition are potentially defamatory, based on what I can only describe as a wholly inaccurate opinion designed to elicit an emotionally charged political response. Now, Councillor Hall has mentioned the extract itself, but this council has not spent or wasted the figure stated, and I suspect it's been misrepresenting the Cheltenham Transport Plan expenditure to project a particular narrative. But in effect, it's a false statement. I believe the characterisation that is being projected in the statement is, as I say, potentially defamatory. In my view, residents who signed this petition have been misled. Now also, residents, again, like Councillor Hallwood, thank you for coming here, even though we're going to disagree about this. But you need to be...
Sorry, please.
Also,
please, could I ask
people
in the gallery just to... Sorry. Please, we do need to conduct this meeting in the proper way, so I appreciate your presence and the issue at hand, but we do need to hear Councillor Jeffreys. Councillor Jeffreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, the residents of Presby need to be aware. I have not received any emails or calls from Councillor Fifield or the now Prestbury ward councillors in the last 6 months whilst this petition was being organised. Neither of the officers of this council. But looking through the parish council minutes, they were given regular updates about the petition. I've just had to review that in light of the paperwork that's been submitted. This administration, however, nothing. Nada. Zilch. Zilch. Zero. In my view, at the end of a 3-year process concerning Innsfield Drive car park, this petition is, for some, all about politics. This is in stark contrast to how this administration operates. And here's where we come to the people, our residents. The assets we as a council manage belong to the whole town, not individual communities. But whenever our actions in relation to finance or assets are concerned and a community issue arises, we work hard to support and resolve these situations. I personally take offence at the accusation that residents are ignored. The report in section 4 clearly shows that a range of solutions were explored. And when a solution was not secured, extensive survey work was undertaken, which we've heard about earlier on, so I'm not going to dwell on that. But again, I must stress, the whole process stretched over several years and a range of solutions were explored. The democratic process has been followed to the letter and some. At this point, I would like to put on record my thanks to Prestbury Parish Council. We explored at great length on 2 separate occasions their potential purchase of the car park. They declined. In my view, this speaks volumes as to how this asset is viewed by the Prestbury community. Colleagues, the report is clear, the evidence is robust, and obviously I support the recommendations as they are laid out, as we have already sold the car park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. Could you just turn off your microphone, please? Could I just ask the monitoring officer to come in on?
Yeah, just a tiny point of clarification. Just to confirm that the sale is not completed. Contracts have been exchanged, but completion has not yet taken place, just a legal technicality.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, so we now move into the debate section of this item. So we have a total of 15 minutes. Sorry, people indicating to speak rather than points of order. Thank you. So we have 15 minutes in total on this. Each member has 3 minutes, though I'm sure you can work out that that doesn't give everyone an opportunity to speak, so please be mindful of that. The first speaker I have is Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. To follow on from Councillor Farfield, I'd like to remind the Chamber of what has been said by other councillors. The car park indeed is part of the village. It's the hub, it's the Prestbury parishes use regularly. The people that use this are the parishioners for the church on a Sunday and for the funerals at weekdays, so that they can't park in the street. As an overflow for the King's Arms when their car park is full. For the plough, when the plough hasn't got a car park, patrons have to park somewhere. We already have a parking problem in Mill Street for the plough, with people parking on the pavement and over people's drives and can't get access in and out of their houses because of the lack of parking spaces. You take the car park away, and that's going to make it even worse. If you look at the businesses in the village too, they're looking for footfall. You take the car park away, people aren't going to go into the village. They're going to stay away. And what are you going to do then? The pub has already got annoyed at people parking in their car park so that their patrons can't use the car park. There's a point that I'd like to make, that there's the AA-rated trips website. If you'd like to go on it, I'll give you the website, about places to visit in Cheltenham. It's Prestbury. It's reputed the second most haunted village in England. And the Burgage is the oldest and most haunted street. The manor in Prestbury is established in AD 1899. Remains of the moat hall can still be found in Spring Street. So more people come into the village and there'll be nowhere to park. We keep on about tourism and the importance of encouraging more visitors to the town and villages. And we have to remember we are the gate to the Cotswolds. The head of Places Marketing said at a recent meeting that tourism is approximately 2 million visitors in 2022, which supports 4% of the employment in the town. Travel and tourism campaigns are a powerful way to persuade visitors to choose Cheltenham and to encourage people to stay longer and encourage in multiple activities whilst here. As I said at the beginning we need to look at the bigger picture, that the car park is in fact the heart of the village. So if Prestbury was published on the Cheltenham website as a place to visit, this will encourage more people in Cheltenham and into the village. So let us look at what can be done. So please send this petition to Overview and Security as to see where there is ways to keep this in moment part of the village alive. This is not a political, it is Councillor Farfield and myself as PAB working together to save what is the village and Prestbury. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Could I just ask you to turn off your microphone? Yes. Sorry, just to clarify, so I know Councillor Fifield's indicating, as the proposer of the petition organiser, you've already spoken, so I can't allow you to speak during the debate, I'm afraid. Councillor Took.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In February 2019, Alex Chalk MP voted to reduce the central government grant to local government by 56% year on year. In February 2018, he voted to reduce the central government grant to local government by 28% year on year. In 2017, he voted to reduce the central government grant to local government by 44%. And in 2016, in February, he voted to reduce the central government grant to local government by 25%. The decision to monetise assets is a direct result of the decisions made by this government. So my question, we have to, because of that cutting grants. So my question to the Conservatives is, when are they going to take responsibility for their MP, for their party and their government, rather than blaming the Lib Dems when they make difficult decisions about these areas?
Councillor Flynn. Councillor Took, could you turn off your microphone? Sorry. Councillor Flynn, I had you next.
Thank you. Can I just have something clarified first, please? I thought I heard that contracts for the sale were exchanged last week, was it? So quite a while after the petition had been submitted to council, is that correct? Yes, okay. That's disgraceful. This administration seems set on destroying democracy and silencing the public as well as opposition councillors. This administration doesn't care about the voices of our communities anymore, just about retaining its power and increasing it until it has every single seat on this council. We see this time and time again. But to actually sign a contract, exchange contracts, just a few days before this council meeting, that is absolutely disgraceful. Thank you.
Councillor Harman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And can I agree with my colleague, Councillor Flynn? Can I first congratulate Councillor Fifield and everybody that's organised this petition. Having this debate, without it, we wouldn't be discussing it. And it would be the fait accompli that I'm afraid it is from this Liberal Democrat administration. Once again, as has been said, they've shown that they will use the systems in this council to their benefit when it suits them, ignore them when it doesn't. All this petition asks is for it to go to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee chaired by an opposition member, still the Liberal Democrat majority, to look at it further. Now, with regard to the timing of the exchange of contracts, you've known about this for ages. You've actually said, Peter, that you knew the petition was coming. I presented that petition on behalf of Councillor Fifield on the 23rd of February, just almost 4 weeks ago. So, of course, you knew it was coming in, and you've chosen to ride roughshod over the process. The ladies and gentlemen up there have come today to hear a better response from this administration than the one you've got this afternoon. Do you agree with me? And I think you lot are better on a sticky wicket, and has been
Through
the case.
the chair, please.
As has been the case throughout this meeting, when we're having questions, the replies we've got have been obfuscation. You are becoming the nothing to do with us, Borough Council. Blame anybody else except yourselves. And I will make, before I sit down, just one more
Councillor
comment.
Harman, please, through the chair.
Thank you. This is quite clearly a fait accompli, but that is a very bad day for Cheltenham and for Prestbury if it is the case.
Councillor Jeffrey. I trust this is a point of order.
Point of clarification, Mr Mayor. I've been accused of just riding roughshod over the democratic process. I've been accused of all kinds of things just across those benches. But for complete clarity, the petition was submitted to this council on the 23rd of February, I believe. An offer had already, to this council meeting, an offer had already been accepted. That's my point of clarification. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't expect to get a round of applause from the gallery, but I'm going to speak as I see this decision. It's not easy for a local councillor to do a job for their town. Whatever your political persuasion, it's tough. And in an ideal world, this council would never, ever have contemplated selling off an asset, any of its assets. But as the Thatcher government did, it sold off assets. It sold off loads of assets, whether it's water, whether it's whatever it was. Because at the time, they felt that was the right thing to do. Now, this council has a fantastic financial record. We aren't going to go bust any time soon. But who knows what's around the corner? And we have had to make some really tough decisions, and this is a tough decision. But let's just talk about the process. This was in the 2020 budget, approved by all of this council. Councillor Fifield wasn't here then, and nor the current PAB members. But there were 2 PAB councillors on the council at that time who supported that budget. Why was there no petition then? In 2021, the council discussed this with the parish council. I looked at the parish council minutes. They had a very good discussion about whether to buy it or not. They decided by 8 votes to 0, with 1 abstention, not to buy it. Now, what I don't understand is why a Prestbury Parish Council would not look favourably upon the Borough Council offering them a car park at a knockdown price. Swindon Village Parish Council took a different view. They were offered their car park, and the Swindon Village Parish Council decided to buy it. Now, I can't question why Prestbury didn't want to, but they didn't. Having said that, when I looked at the debate at Prestbury Parish Council, their concerns were about the ongoing liability of that car park. They talked about maintenance costs, trees, tarmac, fly tipping, cleaning, vandalism, no lighting, no CCTV. They reckon there was £15,000 of the liability. So as well as the council looking to realise its assets to create cash, we're also looking to reduce our ongoing liabilities. This car park was both an ongoing liability and also benefited with a substantial capital receipt, far in excess of £100,000. So what I don't understand is why this petition came along so late in the day. This item went to the Asset Management Committee, which is an all-party committee, before it went to the Cabinet Committee. On that committee, there were Conservatives and there were PAB members. Sadly, the PAB member did not attend that meeting. I can't explain why, but he didn't. So we discussed the report, we discussed the, what Jen has just told us, and we agreed with the officer recommendation, and we sent on that recommendation to Cabinet, and Cabinet then made the decision, which was later confirmed at Council. This has gone through democratic process, but what we've got is a petition at the last minute, very, very last minute, knowing the decision had already been made. Why didn't this petition come in 2021, 2022, 2023? It didn't. So some councils are cutting frontline services like refuse. Some councils are cutting virtually all their services. Some councils, like Birmingham, have got a 10% council tax rise. This is a well-run local authority which is managing its assets in the best possible way.
Councillor Harvey.
Richard Harman. Thank you, Mayor. First thing I'd like to say, as a former mayor myself, congratulations for your mayoralty over this last year. I think you've done an excellent job. And I think it would be wise for councillors in this chamber to be aware that petitions don't ask the mayor to do anything. They ask the council to do it. The mayor is a non-political role, and you shouldn't be asked to be put into this position. You should go to the council to do something. What strikes me as really odd, and backing up what Councillor Baker's just said, really odd about this is my understanding was Prestbury Parish Council was offered the sale of, to buy this car park, and they said no. Don't they represent the people of Prestbury? Thought they did. And they said no, they didn't want it.
They didn't listen to us.
Also, I think it's well worth pointing out that both Councillors Fifield and Councillor Smith are members of the Overview and Scrutiny committee. They have had plenty of time. We have a work plan where we look at items we need to discuss and critique and call in if necessary. And at no point have Councillor Fifield or Councillor Smith asked for this item to go onto the work plan in my memory. They haven't asked. And they're on the committee that they're saying this should go to, asking the mayor to send it. They could have asked at any point in the last year, 2 years, 3 years, or the time they've been on the council, because I know that they've got different spells, they could have asked for overview and scrutiny to have this in. So why does this happen now? I'll just leave that question there.
Councillor Smith, is this a point of clarification or point of order, please?
Councillor Jeffers says that he notified us. I've never received an email to say that you'd sold the car park or that it was about to be sold. You said you'd notified us. Am I right or am I wrong? But the other point is that the car park has been notified, the council have been notified about the interest of the car park being sold. The parish council minutes go on about it. I can start in May 21, June 21, August 21, September 23, and the one says that receiving update from CBC proposal to sell the car park, still waiting for clarification. That's 2023. 2021. 2023 outlined the background of Isdale Car Park is noted that the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on January 2022 regarding the car park had been circulated prior to the meeting, also a link. And it is recommended that there were certain questions asked by the council, by the parish council, to the council to clarify certain notifications, and they've never been received by the minutes of the parish council. So, you know, you say about being notified. The car park's important. It's not a political item. It's not a debate about politics. It's about people's lives. It's about a village. It's about Prestbury, not about Cheltenham. It's about Prestbury, which is part of Cheltenham. And we want to be looking at villages like this, regardless whether it's Prestbury, Cheltenham,
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
the Canton.
Sorry.
That's where it is. Thank you
On
very
a
much,
point
Mayor.
of clarification, it needs to
Thank
be,
you.
please, with any points of clarification, points of order, please try to keep those concise. Right, Councillor Jeffries, this is a point of order, point of clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I said was that I had never received any emails or communications from Councillor Fifield or the ward councils in the last 6 months whilst they were organising this petition. That's my point of clarification on that one. When it comes to the Parish Council, there were officer conversations in the first time round. I can't remember if I actually had many conversations with the Parish Council directly. At the Cabinet meeting, when we took the decision, the leader asked me to contact the Parish Council again and have the secondary conversation. I did that and met with them, with officers. That whole conversation was concluded. Every bit of information was asked for was exchanged, and that then completed that conversation. Just for clarity for all members. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, members, we are now at past our 15-minute limit. I do have 3 members indicating to speak. So, as a point of discretion, if we allow those members to speak, please do keep remarks brief. Councillor Nelson is first.
Thank you, Mayor. Just very briefly, just on dates. The bidding process, we believe, ended on the 9th of February. The petition was passed to Democratic Services on the 1st of February, before the bidding completed, and it was accepted at more than 750 signatures, so therefore allowed to have a debate on the 6th of February. It's not unreasonable to expect Democratic Services to inform the administration, and we believe that the administration are making a decision to ignore the petition. Thank you.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Baker made a very good point. I am a Swindon Village councillor, so is Councillor Clucas. I'm also the county councillor for Swindon Village and St Paul's. And county councillors get a bag of money at the start of every administration called Build Back Better money. That helped Swindon Village purchase their car park, because they are not rich like Presbury, they're fairly small parish. I was born and bred in Presbury.
Councillor Fisher, through the chair, please.
Please hear me. It is, they could have helped. Their county councillor should have helped, I think, as we did in Swindon Village. And on a point of clarity, it's Spring Lane, and you will not see the moat if you walk down Spring Lane, because it's behind the houses. That's from a Presbury man.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. And now the last speaker on this item is Councillor Horwood.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I love Presbury. My aunt was a Presbury parish councillor. She used to send me cuttings from the Daily Mail proving how left-wing Tony Blair was, which I didn't always entirely agree with. And I'm occasionally tempted to go and attend my brother's folk sessions in the Plough, which is a beautiful pub. I have to say, I normally park on the unrestricted, in fact, I always park on the unrestricted car parking on the road, and I've never failed to find a car parking space. And actually, I have to give credit to Councillor Fifield for raising awareness on this. I didn't even know that car park existed. It's not very visible. So, but there clearly is very strong local feeling about this. It is a shame. I mean, as you know, I think Councillor Harman's point about a fait accompli is, as you've now heard, complete nonsense, I'm afraid. This process has been ongoing for years and years. There have been extensive negotiations with the parish council. And in fact, Councillor Jeffreys didn't quite, I don't think, make this as clear as it could have been. The price at which it was offered to Presbury Parish Council was £40,000. That is something like a 60% discount. The final sum, for which it has been, the offer has now been accepted, is 3 times that. So that this council was willing to subsidise it to that extent to enable the community to buy it, I think went above and beyond the democratic process. And I think to describe that as a fait accompli is really doing a disservice both to officers and to the cabinet member. And I had to just go and check, because I know about parish councils. I am a parish councillor. I really believe in parish councils and their powers. And I presented a report to this council a couple of months ago on community infrastructure levy. And that includes the statement of what parish councils hold in community infrastructure levy. And Councillor Fisher got a laugh when he said, not as rich as Presbury. Let me read you the figures. The community infrastructure levy received by Charlton Kings was £13,000 in the previous financial year. Leckhampton with Warden Hill, £25,000. Prestbury, £118,514 and 91 pence. And how much did they hold at the end of that? £118,514 91. They didn't spend any of that money during financial 2023 when these negotiations were taking place. Now, we've heard that Swindon Village did actually take the initiative and purchased. I have to say, if it had been an asset in Leckhampton that we really valued, I would have pushed for purchase as well. In fact, we have tried to negotiate with landowners over purchasing assets that we think are really valuable. So I think to present this as some kind of Lib Dem plot to undermine democracy and to say that no kind of consideration was given to local feeling, the parish council are the representatives of the community. They are the elected parish council. And I think it does a disservice to this council to present these kind of arguments that this was some kind of last-minute fait accompli that was just foisted on the people of Prestbury. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, members. Now, under the terms of our constitution, that concludes this item. There isn't an opportunity to sum up at all. So if members are minded to think about that, we do have an item on the constitution coming up. But that concludes this debate. Sorry, 1 second, please. Okay, members, we now move to voting on the recommendations from the report. You have the keypad in front of you. Are people happy with the... You've got the recommendations in front of you, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
The public won't know what we're voting on.
Sorry, members, can we, let's just pause there. There's some confusion on the recommendation. So if I can just ask the monitoring officer to read through the recommendations so that people know what we are actually voting on here, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to clarify for members, the recommendations are as per the written report. So it's 1, to note the detail of the petition presented to full council on the 23rd of February 2024 to stop the council's sale of Idsall Drive car park. 2, to note the activities outlined in section 4 of the report undertaken by the council between 2020 to 2021 and 2023 to 2024, which have led to the decision to dispose of the car park. And recommendation 3 is to reject the recommendations 1 to 4 outlined in the petition and continue with the disposal of the site on the open market. So if you want to go with those recommendations, you're voting for. If you don't, then you're voting against or abstain as appropriate.
Okay, if everyone's clear, we'll move to the vote. Thank you, members. So that is passed with 26 votes in favour, 9 votes against. Item 10 then. This is the Leckhampton with Warden Hill neighbourhood plan, progression to examination. If we just, sorry, apologies, we'll just take a moment, a brief pause there. Members, mindful that we're at 4 o'clock now. If we just take a short comfort break and back in by 10 past, please. Thank you, members. Sorry, as I haven't given Claire very much warning there, that was a bit... we may have to leave the mace in situ, I'm afraid. Yes. Oh, sorry, Bev. Right. I may have spoken too soon when I said thank you for taking it easy on me this year, but we'll see how the rest of the meeting goes. Right. Item 10 then is the Leckhampton and Warden Hill Neighbourhood Plan, progression to examination. And for this, I'd like to invite the leader, Councillor Hay, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinarily would sit with the Cabinet Member for planning, but for obvious reasons, Councillor Hallwood has declared an interest in this, so I'm effectively presenting this in his stead because he can't. So, as a Lib Dem Council, we're supportive of neighbourhoods playing a bigger part in the decisions that affect our communities and happy to implement the policy of neighbourhood plans that we actually helped to introduce in government. In fact, it was very much an active role that Councillor Hallwood played in this. Neighbourhood plans, when finally adopted in a referendum vote by the local people, become part of the local development framework and a material consideration in planning decisions. The draft Leckhampton and with Warden Hill plan is already being quoted as emerging policy by planning inspectors in appeal decisions. Neighbourhood plans have to be consistent with the higher level adopted local plans. Currently the JCS, and moving forward we've got the joint strategic plan coming forward. And that includes, so for instance, it includes planning of new housing. But within that constraint, we offer local neighbourhoods an important say in the future of their areas. The draft Leckhampton and Warden Hill plan runs to a massive 58 pages, which is a huge amount of work for a parish council. And that's not counting the 10 annexes and appendices. And it contains policies on flooding, climate change, local facilities, new development, walking and cycling, routes, along with green spaces, landscape and heritage. So they're very diverse. At this stage, it has gone through 2 extensive local consultations and a borough consultation as well. The next stage has to be approved by council, which is why this is here now. It's for it to be able to proceed to examination by a qualified examiner, we as a council have to approve this moving forward. After that, the final stage, once any necessary amendments have been made, will be a public referendum by local people in Leckhampton and Warden Hill. Although government support and significant funding is available to support neighbourhood planning, it has taken years of work and a lot of volunteer and effort to get Leckhampton and Warden Hill's plans to this stage. So I think all credit to all of those parish councillors and volunteers who've been involved to make this happen. But it is a daunting prospect, even for an area with a parish council. And I have to note that so far only Leckhampton and Hester's Way Neighbourhood Forum are going down this path in Cheltenham. It is very challenging when you are not part of a parish and you don't have a community organisation that can help to drive that forward, because really we want all of our neighbourhoods, parished and unparished, to have a greater say in the decisions that affect their lives. And we need to reflect on how we can support them all to do that. Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to take questions, should anybody have, although obviously my knowledge is fairly limited.
So, members, do we have anyone wanting to ask any questions on this item? Don't see anyone indicating, so we'll move on to the debate. Does anyone wish to speak on this item? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the leader. I just want to reinforce the amount of work that has gone into this neighbourhood plan. I mean, I think it goes back more than 10 years, and I know many people who've been involved in it, so there's been a lot of scrutiny already within the parish council, within the local community, and I would certainly urge people to support it and vote for it. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any other councillors looking to speak. So, Councillor Hay, did you want to sum up on this item? Or are you happy if we move to the vote? In that case, members, you should have the voting screens in front of you. Thank you, members. That is unanimous. So we'll just wait for Councillor Horwood to rejoin the meeting whilst I just introduce item 11. That is the capital non-treasury investment, treasury management and MRP strategies and statements. I think we'll carry on. So could I ask the Cabinet Member for Finance and Assets to introduce the report on this?
Thank you, Mayor. Members who have sat on this council for a number of years will recall the journey we've had with 10 years of austerity and the commitment to fund discretionary services without us not even talking about COVID and in recent tumultuous economic times. But this council took a route to commercialise operations wherever possible. And with the cost of services at £23.6 million and the income from local taxation and grants equaling around £17.3 million, we have to fill a void of £6.3 million through trading and investment income. How we use our capital and what we do with our money and how we manage investments is more important than ever to make sure we are maximising returns so we are able to generate to support the general fund budget. With interest rates at their highest for almost 20 years, it is also important that we manage our money to minimise our exposure to the higher cost of borrowing. The documents presented today set out how we plan to do this over the next 12 months. These strategies are all mandatory for local authorities and should be reviewed and approved by Council each year, as they have been. Together with our asset management strategy, they provide the framework for our capital, asset and investment decisions for the coming year. Also presented today for approval is our annual minimum revenue provision statement. This explains how the repayment of borrowings have been calculated. There has been no significant change to our approach for the coming year, following a final consultation on the regulations which closed in February this year. So they remain broadly the same sort of requirements. I have to recommend the documents to Council to approval. Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. Do we have any questions on this item? No? In which case we'll move to the debate. Does anyone wish to speak on this item? No? Oh, Councillor Athelston.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Jeffries, for bringing this report to us today. I'd just like to say how really impressive reading the three reports is in terms of the amount of detail and all the difficult financial decisions that the Council's having to make every day. And just to say that I'm really, really pleased that in terms of one of our priorities and our £180 million investment into affordable housing, that we are still on a really good path to being able to continue with that strategy. So thank you.
Okay, I don't have any other members indicating to speak, so Councillor Jeffries, did you want to sum up?
Well, just briefly, I'd like to put on record my thanks, as always, to the finance team. It's well known that this council is well financially run, but behind the scenes there is a whole team of people in the assets team and the finance team that work tirelessly daily, and I just want to put on record my thanks. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, members, we move to the vote. Thank you, members. That is unanimous. In favour, I should say. Item 12, revisions to the Constitution. So for this, we go to the leader to introduce the report. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to be bringing forward to this council some further changes to our constitution, which after all should be and is a living, breathing document, and we need to move that accordingly. So it constantly does need to be double checked and move with the times. So to do that, it's important for councils to be clear and transparent, so that officers, members, residents understand the functions of the various roles. There are two amendments to our constitution this time. That is one on the work of the appointments to outside bodies, and the other one is for the roles for leader, deputy leader, cabinet and councillors. So having having those role profiles, it's something that the Local Government Association absolutely encourage. And it will also be a useful tool to those during the induction process, as well as for members who may be considering taking up any of the roles that are shown in Appendix 3. What it also does is will show to those people who think, could I be a councillor? Would that be something I'd be interested in without, you know, necessarily having your arm twisted or persuaded that it's a good thing to do? Because it is a good thing to do, because democracy is important. So the aim of the profile is to ensure that councillors understand their role, provide councillors with a wider understanding of all of the other positions in the council, and ensure the public understand of the differing council roles. The second change to the Constitution is to the outside bodies, which I believe will give greater clarity to everyone. In April 23, there was a referral to scrutiny, and the Constitution Working Group requested that further work be undertaken in relation to outside bodies, specifically which of the bodies were required by their own constitution to have a representative of the Borough Council, and the value of having a representative, and whether there were any particular skills that the body would look for. There is a little bit, you know, and so I encourage everybody to think about the skills that they bring to being councillors. And actually, it's not just about, yes, you might not have been a councillor, but actually, what life skills have you got to bring that actually would help support our communities? So all of the outside bodies were contacted, and that information was shared with the Cabinet member, the Constitution Working Group, in November last year. It was very pleasing to note that the document, that actually those organisations that either had it constitutionally that they should have a councillor represented, and those that didn't, actually they all said they felt there was big value that actually of having a councillor on their board or within their organisation. So that review is now concluded, and the final list of bodies, together with an amended Part 5G of our Constitution, that was presented to the Constitution Working Group on the 19th of February, where it was approved for ratification by Council. So that's what I'm here to do today, is to ask Council to approve those changes. But I would like to put out a big thank you to the Cabinet Constitution Working Group and our Monitoring Officer, Claire Hughes, for all of this ongoing work. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hay. Do we have any questions? Councillor Horwood.
Yes, I do have a question, actually. Sorry, is that working? Yeah. And I apologise for not notifying the leader of this in advance, but I'm afraid I've only just spotted it. At 5.2 in the report, it just says in order to qualify for a charitable status, the Charity Commission must be satisfied that the organisation is operating for a charitable purpose. I'm sure this will count as a drafting amendment, but I think those heads of charity are quite considerably out of date, like possibly as many as 10 years out of date. There are rather more now, and I think it doesn't really affect the substance of the report at all, which I support, but maybe we might need to just redraft that one point for accuracy. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay. We can clarify that.
Yep. Councillor, did you want to come back on, or are you happy? Are we happy we've got that noted?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Horwood. Councillor Harman, then.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, we're happy to support the changes. As a member of the working group, on a slightly different issue, just really a question, I raised a point that has been raised in this chamber by myself and Councillor Willingham, who's not with us today, and that is that when we changed the dates for submission of questions to Council, on 2 occasions now, the normal budget meeting, like last month, the deadline for the questions is closed before the budget papers have been published. Now, I know it's a slightly academic thing because it might not make any difference, but if a member of the public wanted to ask a question on the papers, which I haven't yet seen, they can't do so. And I think when we had the group, we said that we would look at that for the future. So could I just ask whether you would confirm that you do intend to look at that for the future?
Thank you, Councillor Harman. We do, but actually, if I can turn to Claire, because I think she might be able to. I'm an observer on the cabinet, on the Constitution Working Group, so if I can pass that over to Claire to clarify.
Yeah, so as we talked about at the last meeting, it's in the work plan to look at that post-election. The first Constitution Working Group meeting after the election is likely to be focused on the work we need to do to update the Constitution to reflect the housing transition process, but it's definitely in the work plan for the meeting after that.
Okay, Councillor Flynn.
Thank you. I just noticed under trustee partner appointments, the West Cheltenham Partnership, that appointment is as a company director registered with, what's it called? Forgotten now. Company's House, that's it. So I wondered if that should be under there as well. Sorry, on page 151, sorry. Yeah, sorry, so it's not on the actual table, and I thought it should be, possibly, because it's actually a comes with legal obligations and what have you.
Can I ask members, because if you're content, for the officer to answer that, because I wouldn't know whether legally it should be there or it shouldn't. But can I just clarify, is it West Cheltenham Partnership or is it the West Cheltenham Forum?
It's the Hester's Way Partnership that is now known as the West Cheltenham Partnership. Sorry I didn't notice it before, but I'm happy that that's just noted and will be dealt with. And yeah.
So it's number 15 in the table, that one, the one you mean?
Yes.
It's a board member. Yeah. So the table on the next one is so it's already on there on 15, but you're saying it needs to be in the table below rather than on the main table? I don't understand.
As all the other ones are sort of charities and companies, it looked like, that would fall under that same category.
Okay, I think that's noted, and I think if members are happy, we'll take that one offline. Councillor Horwood.
I beg your pardon, I found one which I'm not sure if is a problem, which is on page 151 of our papers. There's a list of trustee partner appointments, one of which says, number 6, Pates Grammar School trustee. I'm the council representative on the Pates Foundation, which is not the same as the grammar school. It supports the grammar school, but the grammar school is a self-governing academy. But I'm not sure if we may also have an appointment on their governing body. But in any case, so either the trustee needs to be changed to, I assume, governor or trustee of the academy. But in any case, the Pates Foundation then needs to be in there separately if that one is a different one.
Again, oh, sorry, Rowena. Sorry, Councillor Hayes.
Sorry. We do have governors appointed to Pates, to the grammar school as well, on the board.
Again, I think if we note that one, and we'll clarify what needs to be on the list. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Boyes.
Thank you, Chair. Under Appendix 2, number 5 on the table of outside bodies, Number 5, it highlights Twinning Association Executive Committee. Since December last year, we're now known as Cheltenham International Partnerships Association. So if that could be amended, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Boyes. That's noted. Councillor Atherstone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question around, it's such a great list of outside bodies seeing it all together like this. And like Councillor, you've mentioned that when asked whether is there value having a member representation, that the answer is yes, consistently. I just wondered, when was this list of outside bodies first created? And like, are there perhaps other outside bodies that we might want to add that value to as well? So I'm just wondering about the sort of, when is it reviewed? How, what's the process for adding? Or
Councillor Hay.
I don't know how long it's been in existence, but it was certainly in existence in 2002 when I first got elected. So I would leave that to somebody like perhaps Diggory, who's been around longer than I have. That might know. Was it in existence when you were first elected, Diggory?
Well, I was appointed to one or two of these things on the list, and I was not aware of any alterations to that list or additions or even subtractions from that list. So I think that's open to discussion amongst the powers that be, who feel that there's something. And I think people in this chamber could volunteer groups that they might want, and they could be brought up to consideration and do it that way.
So say thank you, Councillor Seacombe. I think that's one for, not for today, but one to be noted and to be looked at. Do we have any other questions on this item? And if not, we'll go to debate. Does anyone wish to speak? No? So, Councillor Atherstone.
yeah, I'd just like to reiterate that it's really, really great that we're able to support the outside bodies in this fashion, and long may that continue. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hay, did you want to sum up?
I note that Diggory didn't answer my question on, was it around when you were first elected, the appointments to outside bodies? But no, thank you, Mayor.
That was in 2000.
Okay, members, so for this item, it's a recorded vote, although obviously just vote in the normal fashion on the screens in front of you. Right, thank you, members. That is carried unanimously. Okay, we're now on to item 13. This is notices of motion. We have 3 notices of motion that have been received. So the first, motion A, this is on the nature emergency, is proposed by Councillor Horwood and seconded by Councillor Pinniger. So I'd like to invite Councillor Horwood to propose the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, can I acknowledge the encouragement of Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust and also my Lib Dem group colleagues to bring this motion forward. And for complete transparency, I should refer observers to the Register of Members' Interests and my trusteeship of the Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust and presidency of the Green Liberal Democrats, both of whom advocate for nature emergency motions, but I don't regard that as a prejudicial interest, so I hope I'm in good to carry on, not have to go out for another cup of coffee. I should also, I have to say, welcome Councillor Flynn's communication of support from the Green Party group for declaring a nature emergency, and I hope this is going to be something that's also supported by Conservative and PAB colleagues as well, because, bluntly, nature matters to us all. It feeds us, it cleans our air, it lowers urban temperatures, it absorbs pollution, it absorbs greenhouse gases, and solid medical evidence now shows it is really important for people's physical and mental health. And it's beautiful. So nature is good, but that's not all. As with the climate emergency, scientists are now clear that the global loss of nature and biodiversity poses an existential risk to humankind's future. And global discussions tend to focus on countries like Brazil and Mexico and Indonesia that still have rich and extensive forests, which are at risk. But there's less focus on countries like ours that have comprehensively trashed nature over recent centuries, and to extend the medical metaphor, are not so much at risk as in need of resus. So I'm pleased that this council is already taking action to restore nature. Councillor Doby is doing fantastic work in his portfolio on parks and green spaces to deliver real increases in biodiversity. The most recent one I've noticed when I'm walking my dog is in the water space in Naunton Park, which has been carried out in partnership with Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust. Councillor Lewis helped last year to set up the Gloucestershire Nature and Climate Fund, which is a mechanism to make sure that developers who can't, and they are pressed on this, can't deliver biodiversity net gain on site when they're doing a new development, have a straightforward mechanism to contribute to biodiversity net gain in Gloucestershire, not miles away somewhere else on some other property they happen to own, which we will be struggling to check up on 10 years' time. On former Councillor McKinley's watch, we produced the Golden Valley Supplementary Planning document to guide that major development in a nature-friendly direction, and it won a Building with Nature Award. And that's now being championed by Councillor Collins, who now holds that portfolio. And in my own planning portfolio, I've initiated an ecology, nature recovery and biodiversity supplementary planning document, which is at the early stages now, which will help us to deliver government biodiversity net gain targets. But let me be clear, I want us to exceed those targets, and I want developers to go way beyond that, as some already are doing. And I criticise them enough, so due credit to Boo Homes and Miller Homes, who are currently bringing forward proposals, certainly around my patch, to exceed that 10%. It can be done, and I know other councils are discussing setting targets as high as 20%. So it mustn't just be a tick box exercise based on a few BNG metrics. It should also try to just seize opportunities to increase nature, to increase the biodiversity and the range of ecology in our town. And as an urban area, that is a challenge. But I know that there are watercourses going through town that have been concreted over, that have been covered, where opportunities have not been taken to just reopen and expose and increase the amount of nature in town. So we can do more. And we can do even more than that. We can appoint the borough's first ever borough ecologist. We've already created baseline biodiversity surveys and worked with partner councils and environmental organisations across Gloucestershire to create the phenomenally impressive Gloucestershire Natural Capital Mapping Project. If nobody's ever gone on the website to have a look at that, it's incredible. You can zoom down on your local area and you can see the woodland, the habitats, the biodiversity opportunities, the nature recovery zone, everything. It's absolutely incredible, the work that's been done. And I'm very pleased that this council was part of that broad-ranging partnership. But that will enable us to set the clear and measurable targets asked for in the motion and put nature recovery even more firmly at the heart of all our policy making, not least in the new strategic and local plan. So we can all play our part in reversing the catastrophic loss of nature. We can do things in our own homes, in our communities, and if anyone here has the opportunity to take the message to the House of Commons at any time in the near future, Parliament certainly could do a lot more. And this council can and should do more, so I hope this motion will be passed unanimously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Horwood. Councillor Pinniger, I believe you're seconded. Did you want to speak now or at the end of this?
I will reserve my right.
Certainly. In that case, I'll look around the chamber for any other members wishing to speak on this item. Councillor Fisher.
Yes, I welcome this. I represent Swindon Village, and a lot of people think Swindon Village is about out-of-town shopping and things like that. But we have otters in Swindon Village. Photographed, I saw a film recently, and a complaint that somebody's goldfish had gone down a bit. And he took it well, give him his due. But I delivered leaflets in Church Road early in the morning and met deer on people's front lawns. There are badgers in Swindon Village. My first bit of casework as a councillor was that the badgers were digging their way into the graveyard at Swindon Village Church, and disturbing the dead. With a lot of negotiations and a lot of money from the church, eventually, we managed to let them live side by side, or die side by side. But yes, this is what we need, because a lot of developments have got green space in them, but it's how it's treated. You know, I once said in this thing, it's like a diamond. A small diamond, a quarter of a carat, is worth £500. 4 of those, £2,000. But a whole carat diamond is worth £4,000. And size matters with green spaces and diversity like that, because they need space to live in that is theirs. They don't want to be living around our bins or anything like that. This is a really good motion, and I will support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I believe we will be supporting this motion. Just one little question, please. Is there any reason specifically why you haven't included local wildlife sites, previously known as key wildlife sites, of which there are 6 in Cheltenham, including our Oakhurst Rise? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Harman. Oh, sorry. On motions, yeah, we don't have questions as such, but I'm quite happy. Yeah, please do.
If you'll allow a point of clarification, there are quite a lot of categories that aren't included, but if Councillor Nelson wanted to frame a very rapid little amendment, I'm sure it would be accepted, if she can manage to find the words to put it in.
I think we have a few people indicating to speak, so we may come back to that then, if that's if everyone's happy with that. Councillor Harman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'll also be supporting it. We will certainly do so. We can't do enough about nature, in my view, and it's a good motion to have. Just a couple of points from me on it. Briefly, when we declare something like this an emergency, we have to know in 2 or 3 years' time whether we've had an impact, whether it's succeeded. I wonder if Council would indicate that. I mean, it's not to stop us voting for it, but we'd like to know. And I would say also, as a county member with a couple of £1,000 left on my Build Back Better fund, if a suitable community group came forward in my area wishing to support a project here that would help us in terms of wildlife, personally for myself, I'd be very happy to support it.
Okay, Councillor Harman, sorry, just turn off your microphone. Councillor Doby, have you next?
As part of my portfolio, I am responsible for parks and gardens and green spaces more generally. And my colleague, Councillor Horwood, has alluded to what we're doing, but I just thought it might be of some interest to councillors and maybe for the record to list just 4 things that we're doing very briefly. For example, we have actually gone for sustainable planting rather than using annuals and perennials in the green spaces for which we're responsible. And these are so much better for birds and for animals. Some of the annuals, which are, the annuals that we then throw away fairly rapidly, not only is that wasteful, but some of them actually insects can't even get into to take the goodness from them, the pollen and so on. But with perennials, we've been very careful in planting ones which are accessible. And of course, during the winter period of time, then they have seeds on them and they provide cover for birds and insects as well. And secondly, I only have 4 things to talk about, the harvesting of local wildflower seeds from our CBC-owned land on Lecampton Hill and Charlton Kings Common, which has now been used in our town's parks, for example, in Pittville Park extensively, and now also in Naunton Park. Thirdly, the minimisation of our use of chemical weed killer across our town. We're trying very hard on this. Just 1 annual application. And the active pursuit of alternative methods of weed control. For example, our use of weed ripping machines. or else indeed toleration of certain areas of previously intensively cut and controlled green spaces through being more wilded, that is, allowing vegetation, including flowers, to grow more freely. And finally, planting more trees. And I know the County Council is doing something similar, but I'd just like to mention two recent examples of this, just this year. First of all, the Warden Hill Community Orchard, and secondly, the new COPS, which is actually dedicated to the volunteers who help in our Friends of groups, who help in our green spaces, and that's been planted at the Bryson. And I note that the motion refers to the volunteers, and I'd like to finish by saying not only do I support the motion, obviously, but also I'd like to pay tribute to the volunteers, and indeed I spoke at the Bryson to say they really are the guardians of our green spaces. They hold my feet to the fire if I'm not doing the right thing by biodiversity, quite rightly so, but we are doing the right thing in our Parks and Gardens team. But we need to do more. We need to think about this in everything we do, and that's the point of the motion, really, that I'd like to 100% support. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dobie. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And it would be somewhat remiss if I did not comment on this motion as the Cabinet Member for Climate Change. I have to say, I, like Councillor Flynn, was firmly in the queue of people who would have loved to second this motion, but to try and get between Martin Horwood and Richard Pinniger and biodiversity would not be good for my life expectancy. I am really privileged to be in the role that I am and to have done work across the county to see how we can spend our money wisely and ensure that the projects that we're leading on biodiversity are the ones that will leave our children and our grandchildren incredible advantages compared to many other towns. I worry a lot that biodiversity spending isn't as effective as it could be in lots of parts of the country, and I think in Cheltenham in particular we've been incredibly focused on how best to spend money on tangible projects which are really delivering, which I think is so important. It's not enough to just talk the talk, it's important to walk the walk. I think this motion is fantastic, but above all else, I think it's essential. We have an obligation to, as I said, our children and our grandchildren, to allow them to inherit a town full of things like bees and Bernese deer and fish and all these very important parts of our natural ecosystem that once they're lost, they will not come back. We have an obligation now and today to ensure that we are investing in the future of this town. I think this motion does an excellent job of charting out what the next steps for that process look like.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Okay, Councillor Jeffreys.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, Councillor Lewis pretty much stole my thunder, you may say. I mean, I don't often get out at Springbank. I try and support my community, as you know. But when I do get out, I do like to go up on the escarpment. And it always sort of gives me that nice warm feeling when I look out and I can look at Gloucester one way. And I'm not trying to belittle Gloucester at all before I get lambasted in the press. You look out towards Gloucester, you look out towards Cheltenham, what you get definitely is that sense of, I think the phrase was, a town in a garden. When you look at Cheltenham, we are so green, we're blessed with trees, green spaces. Councillor Hood has been working on green spaces, I think, pretty much all his life, as far as I'm aware. But hand in hand with that town in a garden feel has to be that nature. Because we can have the green spaces, but we haven't got the nature to, you know, be there. So I'm wholly supportive because we should leave this place, this planet, our town, better when we're no longer in it for our future generations. So 100% supporting this. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffreys. Councillor Chelin.
Just on a slightly different note, I really welcome this motion and I really appreciate what Councillor Dobie and the team here at Cheltenham Council are doing. From the point of view of residents, I've got quite a lot of residents who are asking, you know, how can I get a tree planted? How can I have more trees in the street? And there are various initiatives already underway. And I think, maybe it was just me, but I think we need to present that more transparently to people because they really will engage in that and just make it clearer what is available in terms of increasing what we do in terms of biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chelin. Councillor Atherstone.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it is absolutely right that we declare a nature emergency. All across the country, we're having to build a lot more homes. We need to be extremely mindful that we are also providing the space for the natural habitat to thrive and exist and grow. I'm particularly looking forward to seeing how we can address increased sort of nature and biodiversity in our little pockets of green space that we have in St Peter's. Obviously, it's a lot harder in more sort of town centre locations where we don't have as much green space as other parts of the ward. But this has my absolute full support, and to thank Councillor Horwood for bringing this motion to us today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Atherstone. Councillor Nelson, did you want to, I know there was an offer to add words around local wildlife sites. Did you want to add anything?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've never done this sort of thing before on the hoof, so to speak, but would it work? And I'm about as a more experienced over there. Paragraph 2A, just to literally add the words in there, commits us to protect and enhance biodiversity and establish and reinforce resilient ecological networks, including local wildlife sites. I don't know if that would work or not at the end of paragraph 2A. You happy with that?
Happy to accept that amendment.
Fantastic. And that's same for the seconder. You're happy with that as a principle?
Happy to accept that, yes.
Fantastic.
I think Councillor Joy might want to speak.
Councillor Joy.
I did really want to say, because of course Green Group pitching in, this is a no-brainer for us, so we're really excited to be voting on this. Unfortunately, Councillor Flynn had to go to the West Cheltenham Partnership meeting actually, so basically I'm going to be giving it our full support, and it sounds like this is going to be voted in by a landslide. I just want to say it's really nice hearing Councillor Atherstone's idea about building it in with nature. There is this really, really cool organisation, North Strand of Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust, and the Next Door Nature Project. You've probably heard of it already. But if so, you may be considering the fact that Frances Halstead, who actually works as part of that, the outreach team, she's actually expressed really keen interest in working with our planning committee to actually inform them about how we can use our planning committee arm to actually be really, really informed about wildlife provision. If you'd be interested in that, then I think that'd be really, really cool. I could send you your details if you think that would be really good, but that would be amazing, if that's okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Joy. I don't have any other members indicating to speak on this item, so I'll go to Councillor Pinniger to second.
Okay, well, that seemed to go rather well. I think we're all behind this motion. Thanks to everyone who spoke, who seems to know so much more about what this council is doing already. I notice it when I walk around the streets. And obviously we have a nature reserve in St Mark's, which there's a lot of work gone on from the Green Spaces team. We're trying to include increased biodiversity in the King George V playing fields. And I imagine that this is happening in parks and with the councillors right across the town. So this is all great news. I did have a nice long speech written out, but I think I shall save you because it's more internationalist. It's more about us. By doing this, we're not just doing it for us, we're sending a signal out to other councils across Gloucestershire, across the UK, but also, you know, as this movement builds across Europe and the rest of the world. So it's not just us. I've travelled recently and I've seen environmental devastation like you wouldn't believe, in Malaysia in particular, where the rainforest has been replaced by palm oil plantations, in India where my team work, where the enterprise area is just an ecological wasteland. I've been encouraging the business to engage with their council in India. And it's just so important that we get a grip of this now, and it's good that we're going to be playing our part. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pinniger. Councillor Horwood, as the proposer to this motion, did you want to say anything further before we move to the vote? No? In that case, we will move to the vote. Okay, thank you, members. That is passed unanimously. Moving on then, motion B. This is on special needs in schools, proposed by Councillor Clucas and seconded by Councillor Baker. So, Councillor Clucas, would you like to introduce this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last few weeks, a couple of things prompted me to put down this motion today. One was so shocking that I could not ignore it. And the second came from teachers, head teachers, who have significant and real concerns. Some of you may have seen in the BBC a report in relation to Child X. You may have read the BBC report, which is very good. I would urge you, don't stop there. Go on and read the full report. Because if you do, something will strike you. You will think, this can't be happening here. This can't be happening. These children need help. This person needed help. And suddenly, they were being abused. They were being used while they were in care. Just think about that. The second point, second reason I wanted to bring something here was because a couple of weeks ago we had a meeting of No Child Left Behind, the new board that's been set up. And to that meeting we had information come to us from head teachers. And that information was talking about a range of things. And I shall say what they were. Children being excluded from school have doubled in the last year or so in Gloucestershire. Just think about that for a minute. Doubled. Those children requiring educational certificates, educational help, plans, care plans, are waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for assessments. Some of them are in classrooms where they should never be. Indeed, one school was telling me they have a child that's been waiting 2 years for an assessment, and they are 2 years beyond where they should be in the wrong class. Just think about that. Talking about children who are staying at home because that's what they want to do. And nobody is challenging that. Nobody is saying, no, you should be in school. Why are you at home? It's not being done. It's not being challenged. And then I look at some of the figures. There has been a 10% rise in SEN numbers. That is, those children who require special educational needs assistance. The amount of money going towards that? 4%. What does that tell you? You're not going to meet the need. You're not going to know where that money is going to meet the need in the best potential way. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I was presented with this from one of our head teachers. Gloucestershire funding for high needs is rising by 3.8%. High needs children's numbers are rising by 9%. Where's that going to leave our kids? Not only those children who need the help, but what about those children in that classroom who see their teachers and additional teachers coming in because they can't cope with the needs of an individual child? What about that? What about the effect that has on our children in schools? This is what is happening. And the impact is such that our children are in schools, in classes, where many teachers are saying, I've had enough of this, I can't do this, I can't cope anymore. And they're leaving as our care assistants, as our teaching assistants. And so what that means is that we have a real and significant problem. And I want us to get to the bottom of it. Now, we are not the Education Authority, and I understand the Education Authority has a significant financial problem. Because education and health, because the health service is involved in this too, I think it's 44 million, I will be corrected, that they need and haven't got from government. And what this says to me is we can't just sit back and allow this to happen without challenge. And so what I want to do, and what the motion asks for, is for our county council to tell us how many children are in need. What's that need? What are we going to do about? Where is the assistance coming from? Because if we don't get that, then this situation is going to get worse. It may be that right across Gloucestershire, district councils are in the same situation as us, and they will want to change things, but can't, because neither they nor the county are working to do so. So what I'm suggesting, ladies and gentlemen, is that we should look at this as a matter of great concern, of great urgency. The money needs to come in, and I'm really sorry, we heard earlier, Julian, you mentioned how much funding for local authorities had been cut. That's going to happen again this year. And the silence of our children will tell you that they are the ones who are going to be most affected by it. That's the situation. And there was a report, an Ofsted report done recently in relation to the county. And I read the report, as I'm sure others here have. And in reading that report, what struck me was this. The Health Service and the County Council were working together in 2016, and there was a report done then. And that report said, you've got real trouble, you've got real problems, you're going to have to sort this out. And the next inspection was December last year. And I'm afraid that although there had been some scraps of improvement, the fact is that that improvement wasn't going far enough. And indeed, at the start of the report, this is what it said. Too many children and young people, their needs are not being identified swiftly enough in Gloucestershire. The education, health and care plan and annual review processes in terms of quality and timeliness mean that too many children and young people do not access the support they need. Referral processes and delays in referrals to services mean that providers often work in silos, doing the best job they can to meet needs. For example, at key transition phases, some children and young people move on without an agreed final plan or with an appropriate support package in place. This can put the education placement at risk. As a result, an increasing number of children and young people are missing from education. Electively being home educated on a part-time education packages or not in education, employment or training. Just think about that for a minute. That's our next generation. That's what we're looking at. The report acknowledges some limited improvements, as I've said. But what it also says is the entire system is failing children who need help and need it now. Need it now. So I would hope, ladies and gentlemen, that you would find it in your hearts to support this. Because what we need is the information. What we can then do is look at that impact and potentially, I would hope, come together to try and ensure that our children, our young people who need extra assistance get it, and get it when they need it, not 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the line, or not get it at all. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. I hope that we can come together on this, and I hope that we can make a difference to the lives of those youngsters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clucas. Councillor Baker has seconded. Did you want to speak now or reserve? You're right. Reserve, you're right. In that case, I'll look around for any other members wishing to speak in this item. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, declaration of interest. My son is a psycho-art therapist and he lectures at a university 1 day a week, training future, hopefully, psycho-art therapists if they can be afforded by local authorities. And the rest of the time he works in schools, some of them private, unfortunately, but some places there are funded and they are for kids who can't afford to, parents can't afford to pay. The need is enormous. The rewards are good. You can see changes. And my son has gone from being a school teacher to doing this because he could see the need but could do nothing about it. He's taken 3 years to do an MA to do this. And the need is growing daily. It's not an emotional thing. It is a necessary function for society. We've got to look after people who need help in special ways. The rewards, as I said before, are great. He's seen in the last year some kids who are now almost ready to go back into mainstream school because of the way they've been educated and shown that it, through art and other, and just being needed and shown that they are special. They may have special needs, but they're special kids. And they need the support. I will support this 101% because if we don't look after our future is not going to be very clever. Thank you.
Councillor Jeffreys.
Thank you, Mayor. I've worked at National Star College for a brief period, so I've seen young people at their most vulnerable. My wife moved from health as an intensive care nurse, or spent a long time in the nursing career, and she's now moved in education. She works in educational special needs, so I speak with some authority when I say this is correct, 100% correct, and support this. We need to be supporting those parents and supporting those kids, because looking after a child with special educational needs or special health educational needs or whatever is emotionally draining. Your sole focus is on that child. So I could criticise the administration of the County Council. I will not, because it's not about politics for me, this one. This is about kids. So anything we can do to gain some information, get a better understanding, you know, try and see what else we can do. But there's nothing we can do. We're a district. We're not the health or we're not the education people. But having that dialogue, having that conversation may enable something. So 100% I'm going to support this non-politically charged conversation. Thank you, Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffreys. Councillor Harman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I thank Councillor Lucas for bringing the motion on this. It is an important issue. I'm going to sort of say that we are, in broad terms, supportive of the motion. I'd like to make a couple of observations and then a bit of a suggestion for an amendment, or at least an addition to the motion, if you would prepare to receive it. I think it is important that we recognise that this is a key area for our young children. Some years ago, I actually went to a lecture and met Baroness Mary Warnock. Now, that name may not mean to some of you, but she was a key advocate of what we need to do for special educational needs. And, you know, she probably set the frame, really, for a lot of the stuff that governments and councils of all persuasions have dealt with over the years. So in that sense, it is a very big issue. Now, we're not going to play politics with this today, because I think it is important. I'll make two other points. Firstly, although it isn't really within the ambit of this council, it is within the county council, and it is open to any member of the public to ask a question at county council, as it is here. County council members in this chamber, including myself and Councillor Baker, to raise it. You could, through any political group, put a motion there as well, so it's an open process. I wonder if you were to add to your motion that you were to invite the relevant cabinet member from the county council, possibly with officer support, to come to a meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee at some appropriate time to give you the precise position, because there is a lot going on here I think is not reflected in the motion. And yet there are challenges, but I think that would help to have a more overall effect and speak to the specialists, like, for example, the Director of Children's Services, the Director of Education. Let's get the basic facts. None of us this afternoon can wave a magic wand and improve this. But I tell you now, I've also seen in Belmont School and others the children, and it's absolutely heartbreaking when you see them, and there's absolute help for need. Now, I don't put myself in that category, but I am dyslexic. And when I was a little boy, there was very little help for dyslexia. I was stood on a chair in front of my class and told I was an idiot and I'd never read and write when I was about 8. Now, I managed to do okay in the circumstances. And if that is the kind of experience any of our young people get with whatever the disabilities they might have, we need to understand it. So yes, we can support this, but I would suggest, if you're prepared to do so, to have that invitation, and I'm quite sure that Phil Robinson, whoever it will be pleased to come and talk to you because he would share your concerns.
Thank you, Councillor Harman. Do we have any other members looking to speak on this item? Sorry, Councillor Andrews.
Yes, I'd like to thank Councillor Clucas for bringing this forward. I don't know if anyone knows this, but my partner is a TA in a local primary school. I recognise an awful lot of what's written down here. And one thing I would say is that 10 years ago, every member of that staff in that school found it a joy to work there. Now, the ones that are still there would tell you a very different story right now. My partner has, on numerous occasions, looked after 2 or 3 children on one-to-one care at the same time. Google Translate comes in very handy, as do some of the other children are being used as translators. So there are numerous issues going wrong with schools at the moment, and we need answers, and we need solutions. So I will be supporting this motion.
Okay, so before I go to Councillor Baker, I just want to clarify, was there actually an amendment suggested there? And is it accepted, or could you just clarify that, please?
I think, Councillor Harman, you did move an amendment that the Cabinet member responsible should be invited to overview and scrutiny. I'm happy to add that, but I actually want us to have the figures. I want us to have the information. So I wouldn't do it as an either or. I'm happy to add that on if colleagues are agreeing to do that. Yes.
Okay, so I'm taking that as a new, an additional sort of bullet point number 7, saying to invite the Cabinet member from County to a meeting of overview and scrutiny. Is that a fair summary? If we just add that as a 7th?
Yeah, so just to clarify, do we want it to say, following receipt of the information requested in 6, to invite the Cabinet member and relevant officers to a meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, yeah? Second is happy with that?
Okay, I think we have agreement on that. Sorry, Councillor Hay, did you want to?
I think it's just a point of clarification, perhaps I could direct at the monitoring officer. Do we not have to, because council can't tell scrutiny to look at it, is the proposal that I might have missed something because I wasn't sat here, but it's just a point of clarification because we can only request or refer to scrutiny to look at.
Yeah, so just to clarify, it was an amendment that came from Councillor Harman, which was to add a request to the motion for members to the Cabinet member from the county to come along to a scrutiny meeting just to once the information had been received, to give a bit of an update, which I think everyone in the room seems more than happy. Yeah, to scrutiny. I think everyone's happy with that. Sorry.
Councillor Harvey, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I mean, as Vice Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny, I endorse what Councillor Clucas just said, which is we'd like the facts and figures first to the committee. And yes, it would be nice if the Cabinet Lead came in and discussed things with us. But I think we'd like, as a council, to have the facts and figures first, and certainly before ONS, so we can form our own view and get the right questions. So I'll be happy to support it coming to ONS.
Understood. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Took, did you want to?
Just try ahead, a kind of plea for facts and figures again. I actually am slightly nervous about the Cabinet Lead coming, because I would prefer a politician didn't come. I would prefer it if the officers came who are responsible for this, because I think we're more likely to have facts and figures. But that's my own personal view.
So but if we have cabinet member and relevant officers, everyone happy with that? Yeah.
Okay, are members comfortable or happy they understand what the recommendations are now? Okay, in which case we'll move to Councillor Baker as the seconder.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think it's an understatement to say that we have a crisis in our schools when it comes to dealing with children who have got special educational needs and disabilities. In the last, since 2015, the number of young people eligible for educational health and care plans in England has doubled to 500,000. In Gloucestershire, there are 6,000 children with these care plans. And the numbers are just going up and up and up. In 2021, there were 900 requests for one of these plans. In 2022, there were 1,100. In 2023, there were 1,400. The numbers are just mind-blowing. That means that in some classes, in schools in Cheltenham, I know there are a third of the pupils have got special educational needs. And I don't think we can understand the impact that has in the classroom for that teacher, and the impact that has on morale, workloads, stress loads, and all that on that teacher, and the impact that has on their health and absences, and the impact it has on the other children in that school. There is a huge recruitment issue. Schools cannot get assistants, classroom assistants. My partner is a classroom assistant, Glenn's too. And when she said to the headmistress, can she double her hours? The headmistress said, when can you start? The situation is chronic. And it stems from, and it is political, it stems from years and years and years and years of underfunding. No, there's no question about that. We've already heard that the percentage increases in these plans are that, and the increase in spending is that. It doesn't work. Something's broken. The system is broken. The next government is going to inherit an absolute bombshell here. The next administration at Shire Hall, because there will be one, will also inherit an awful situation that it will have to deal with. One of the issues is wages. For classroom assistants, usually on minimum wage. You can get more stacking shelves in the supermarket. What does that say about how we value people in our society? Frankly, shocking. Down to funding. So I think Councillor Flo took some quotes out of the recent inspection the SEND inspection was carried out at the County Council, and you took some of my quotes, but there are other quotes you missed. And this one, so in the report it said, parents and school leaders rightly describe a system that is not working well for children and young people with SEND plans and their families. The local area partnerships arrangements lead to inconsistent experiences and outcomes for children and young people. The local area partnership must work jointly to make improvements. Frankly, the report was appalling. Yes, there are small improvements happening, but it's going to need a lot more until this situation is addressed. And it is going to need considerable investment, and that has to come from government. Already, 70% of expenditure at Shire Hall is on families and on adults and on children. 70%. And that's only going to go up. Some of these children need 5 people, 5 carers to look after them. You know, there isn't enough places. Some of these children are having to go into the private sector, which is costing an arm and a leg, because the County Council hasn't built enough schools. Over the years, building one now. You know, it's just chronic underinvestment and lack of foresight. It's got to be grabbed and it's got to be dealt with. And I'm really grateful, Flo, for you bringing this, because what we must do on this issue is raise awareness. Raise awareness. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Clucas, would you like to sum up?
Well, Mr. Mayor, can I say thank you to everybody for your support. There is nothing more important than knowing that your children are okay, that they're taken care of, that they've got enough to eat, that they've got friends, that they can be in a happy situation. Yeah, they'll get things wrong, but that's the way life is. But the fact is, all of that is so important. And when I read the reports, when I talk to head teachers, when I have the same experience that Paul's had, I can't sit and ignore it. And I'm so proud of every one of you that you're prepared to stand and say, we can't ignore it either. We are going to ask the questions. We are going to look to make that change that's necessary. So thank you again. And thank you for your support. It is much appreciated, not by me, by the kids, by their teachers, by their schools, by their parents, by their carers, by their brothers, by their sisters, all of those who actually will benefit from what you're going to do today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clucas. We will now go to the vote. Thank you, members. That is carried with 1 abstention. We now move on to motion C. That's the GP capacity in Cheltenham. And the proposer is Councillor Wilkinson and seconder Councillor Bamford. Councillor Wilkinson, would you like to introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. From the crisis in SEND to the crisis in healthcare. And it's not controversial to say that our health service is in crisis, particularly in primary care. Anyone who speaks to a GP or someone who's on one of the patient practice groups knows that there is so much pressure in the primary care sector and it is cruelly underfunded compared to other elements of the health service. And that's a problem because this is the front door to healthcare for so many of us. If you've got something wrong with you, you phone your GP, you ask for an appointment. And they play an absolutely vital role, but they're under increasing pressure. Many of them are deciding that they're going to retire early, retrain, do other jobs. They're highly intelligent people. They can be footloose like that. They could even move to other countries where they get paid more money and the quality of life is much better. And I must start by saying that this isn't a criticism of our hard-working GPs, quite the opposite. This is a call for our local GPs in Cheltenham and on the periphery to receive more support. At the recent HOSC meeting, the chair of the local medical committee spoke, and he suggested that the number of appointments on offer at GPs might need to be cut in Gloucestershire. He said the current situation was like asking primary care to see 10% more people with twice as much wrong with each patient, with 10% fewer GPs twice as often. That's a quote from the BBC website. There's a lot of maths involved in that statement, but I think what we can conclude is that he's not saying things are getting easier. That might explain why, in November last year, 1 in 10 appointments in our county came after a wait of more than 1 month. Now, that's not to say that if you phone your GP surgery in the morning with one of those things that ticks the box for the urgent appointment, that you might not get one. My own experience at my GP surgery is extremely positive on that count. But not everyone is as articulate as me. Not everyone has an ability to explain exactly what's wrong with them. They might have foreign language difficulties where they don't speak fluent English. They might have learning difficulties. There could be all kinds of barriers to them effectively communicating with their GP surgery receptionist what exactly it is that's wrong with them. And it's sad to say that, similar to the last motion where we were talking about a funding crisis, as mentioned by Councillor Baker, it is no coincidence that these problems, the delays to seeing GPs, are occurring after a real terms cut to primary care budgets. Now, there's nothing that this council can do to get an increase in the budgets for primary care. But this motion is about ensuring that we recognise the current struggles in primary care and that we increase capacity for the future. It's a fairly straightforward proposal, and you'll have read the lines before you. The first part builds on a principle already voted for when members supported the SIL schedule at our recent debate about the SLP, the Cheltenham, Gloucester, Tewkesbury Strategic Local Plan. That schedule calls on this authority to work with Gloucester and Tewkesbury, our neighbours, to prioritise developer funding for the building of a new GP surgery. It's useful to consider, when we're thinking about that this authority's position on a potential surgery location should be agnostic. We're not the experts in knowing where we should have a new GP surgery. That will rely upon the availability of a site. We know that spare land in Cheltenham is at a premium. And it will rely on the expertise of health service professionals and health service managers. It's not for us to say, let's have one there. However, we know that there is a desire in certain areas where Cheltenham might be growing upon the part of the Integrated Care Board and the NHS to provide a new GP surgery. But secondly, this motion also seeks to address a potential other problem. It may also be the case that existing surgeries in older and less accessible premises might be seeking a new home. The success of the Wilson Health Centre on Presby Road is instructive. Now, this authority may be able to use its assets to assist in a prudent fashion, the way that we use our assets from time to time, and it might form part of a financial offer that is useful both for the new GP practice, for the NHS and for this authority. That's for our officers to investigate. Now, members might be tempted to stand up and express a concern that there are not enough GPs to staff a new surgery. I'm sure somebody will mention that in the debate. I would say that is the proverbial dead letter. It is pointless to say that. We know that there is a shortage of GPs. All we can do is influence what happens in Cheltenham in future and make sure that we are planning for the better. And it is instructive that the NHS workforce plan published by the government does cover the problem with the shortage of GPs and does say that we do need to train, retain and recruit more GPs. Members might also say there's no issue at my local surgery. That may very well be the case, but the statistics on GP appointment waiting times regularly published suggest that this county does struggle. The recent 4-week stats for November are instructive there. And of course, we know that we are a growing town. There's going to be growth in Cheltenham, on the edge of Cheltenham, on the edge of Gloucester, in Tewkesbury Borough as well. And it is our responsibility to work with our neighbours to make sure that we are addressing some of those key concerns that you hear whenever there's new development. Top of the list of concerns of residents will often be, where are we going to get a GP appointment if we build all these houses? And therefore, it is my suggestion that if we don't do this and we don't prioritise this kind of scheme, then as councillors, we're not doing our job. And that is why I think you should join me and Councillor Bamford in supporting this motion today to make sure that we can do the right sort of planning for the future. So as our town grows, we are providing the services for residents that they need for their healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Bamford, did you want to speak now or reserve your right?
I'd like to speak now, Mayor. Thank you. And thank you to Max for offering me the opportunity to speak on this motion. A couple of hours ago, we talked about the funding crisis in local government. A few minutes ago, Flo so eloquently described the problems in education. And what I hope to do in the next few minutes is describe a very similar situation in the health world. There is a bit of a theme here, isn't there? I spent the last 40 years working for our local NHS. When I started, Britain's NHS was the envy of almost everywhere else in the world. We were able to offer a full range of those medical services that were available then. But above all, we had excellent coverage with a much greater proportion of our population having ready access to those services than in almost any other country in the world. Sadly, 40 years on, we're no longer a world leader. In fact, we're in the middle of the pack at best. It's not difficult to see why. Whilst investment in the Blair-Brown years roughly kept pace with health service inflation and waiting lists and surgical waits improved, the investment in the NHS throughout the Tory administrations of the last 40 years has been woefully inadequate. A fortnight ago, I had the misfortune to listen to Mr. Hunt's budget speech. He proudly proclaimed that from 2010, the real terms growth in the NHS had been fully funded. I'll stop short of calling that a lie, but I will point out that there's a great deal of difference between the RPI and the rate at which health service funding needs to increase to keep pace with our ageing population and the fantastic but costly things that modern medicine can do to improve the quality and length of all our lives. When you take those two factors into account, which is the reality of life in the NHS, investment has actually fallen by over 3% per year in real terms in that period. Compounded over 14 years, that's a hell of a shortfall. And it's had massive implications. It's the key reason we see excessive waits throughout the system. Regularly over a year for non-urgent surgery, with 7 million plus on the waiting list. Waiting excessive amounts of time for an ambulance, deplorable waits in A&E, we know all about those. And we struggle to find beds in hospitals because they're unable to fund or to staff enough to meet demand. And for our GPs in the county, this means they have to deal with people suffering whilst they wait for procedures. It means they have to deal with people discharged earlier because acute and community hospital beds are needed for more medically critical patients. And all this on top of the ageing population that they face. In Gloucestershire, roughly the same number of GPs deliver approximately twice as many appointments as they did 15 years ago. On top of this, there are more practice nurses, along with physios and pharmacists, all seeing and treating patients in primary care who would formerly have seen their GP. And we mustn't forget the receptionists, now turned into non-clinical care pathway navigators. The demand on these primary care services has gone through the roof. Practice budgets are overstretched and practice staff are frazzled. I hope we can all get behind this motion. One extra fully staffed practice in Cheltenham is the least we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bamford. Do we have any members wishing to speak on this motion? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One or two of you know, a few weeks ago...
Sorry, Councillor...
It's okay. Yeah, oh, sorry, I wonder why everybody stopped. A few weeks ago, one or two of you may know, I had to go to A&E because I couldn't get a GP appointment. I rang my local practice and couldn't see the practice nurse, no appointment. Couldn't see a doctor, no appointment. So I was referred to another practice, which I drove to, some 10 miles. There, the practice nurse gave me antibiotics and said, if they're no better, if you're no better by tomorrow or deteriorate, go to A&E. And I duly took the medicine, and by the following day I had symptoms of a heart attack, which I've had 2 previously, and I suffer with COPD, and my breathing was not good. So I got myself to A&E, Gloucester. 26 hours later, I came out. During that 26 hours, I waited 23 of them to see a qualified doctor. I saw nurses and nursing sisters and things like that, but I couldn't see a doctor. I then waited till 10 o'clock this morning to see a heart specialist. All this time, I had nowhere to lie down, no beds, no stretchers, people lying on the floor, people on drips in the waiting room. One lady had to be put on a drip, and they'd run out of stands that you hang the bags on. They sat her by a pillar and taped the drip bag to the pillar. It's like something out of a war film. And a lot of people there were there because they couldn't see a GP. And that's what's putting the pressure on. It's accumulative. And I couldn't believe it. People have called me a tough old thing once or twice. And I am, thank goodness. But I came out of there, I couldn't drive my car. I had to get my son to come and get me. You're ill and you haven't slept for 26 hours, you're not going to feel the best. And I wasn't safe. But we need things at the beginning. When I was a child in Presby, most people could walk to the GP surgery within yards. Now people have somehow got to travel to GP surgeries. That's fine if you can drive, or if you're well enough to drive. But some people don't drive. And we've got to get the system right. And it's all down in the end to lack of investment. Investment in buildings, but in the end, it's investment in people. Because with a building, it's just an empty room. It doesn't serve much purpose unless there's people using it for a good reason. And your local GP, I've seen it go from people who knew you, cared for you, and to people who are really under pressure.
Could you conclude, please, Councillor Fisher?
Yeah, okay. The last GP I saw, I said to him, where are you from? He said, I'm retired from West Wales, but I've been roped in. And I said, where are you staying? He said, in a bed and breakfast. He's doing that really out of the kindness of his heart, because he could be doing a lot more with his life than that. We've got to sort it. Whoever forms the next government, if they don't, we are going to be down the tube, really, because there comes a point when you can't.
Councillor Fisher, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think it's only fitting I call you up on your time at this point.
So I'm not coming next month.
Councillor Collins, follow that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'll try not to prompt you to tell me to sit down because I've been speaking for too long. But some of you know, but not a lot of you know, that one of my sons was a GP. Now, I fully support the motion, I'll say that to start with, but this is only one part of the issue. It's not all about money and underfunding. But when my son qualified from Warwick University Medical School, he won 4 of the 6 prizes that were on offer that year, and he shared a 5th one as well. But 4 or 5 years into his GP-ship, he's left the National Health Service. He now works still in the medical industry, but as the diabetes
lead for Novo Pharmaceuticals, which is a Danish company. His wife, they didn't train at the same university, but his wife, she's also left GP practice, and now she's a medical officer for Transport for London. So it's not just the fact that we need more surgeries. We do need more GPs. We need to retain GPs, and that's a failure as well. But let's not forget, it's not just about the GPs. And other people, I think I could probably agree with everything that's been said. The other professionals that work in our National Health Service, they're really important too. They're key. I can't get an appointment at my practice for 2 weeks. Oh, and that's just a telephone appointment, by the way. And it's not always with a GP. It might be with one of their nurse practitioners. That's not good. And then they have to sort of triage you to decide whether you need to go and see a GP. It's not good. Of course, they're providing a service that treats patients, sick people. It could be physically sick, it could be mentally ill. But if these people aren't seen in a timely fashion, it makes the situation much, much worse. And I'm sure we've all seen these awful videos with people trying to remove their teeth because they can't get a dentist appointment. And people will be trying to actually solve their own medical needs because they can't get in a car and drive to a GP that's 10 miles away. These people are desperate, and it'll make it worse and worse and worse. It's not just about money, it's about how that money is spent, and I think that's something that we need to concentrate on as well. So as I said at the beginning, I fully support this motion, but it's only one of the problems that we as a society in this country face, unfortunately. So thank you for bringing it, and I will be voting for it.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. I don't have any other members indicating to speak, so we will go back to Councillor Wilkinson to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Councillor Bamford, thank you for seconding. You're right, we're clearly no longer a world leader in healthcare. While we all love the concept of the NHS, which was devised by the great Liberal William Beveridge and then enacted by the Labour government and supported by governments of all colours over a number of decades, I'm afraid the concept has been let down and we're in a real pickle. The point about investment falling in real terms is the key one. Of course, every time anyone stands up and says we're spending record amounts of money on insert name of service, they are correct. But that is a sleight of hand, because if you're, well, everyone's food bills are going up. Inflation happens year on year. Things get more expensive, and when you've got more people with more problems, then clearly you need to spend extra to catch up. And the element of public health, which I think Councillor Collins refers to there, when people's initial problems are not picked up on in a timely fashion, just gets worse and worse and worse. And you end up storing up problems, and it becomes much more expensive to deal with further down the line. Councillor Bamford also mentioned the problem of GPs picking up work caused by failures elsewhere in the healthcare system. Councillor Fisher made that point too, and that is a point that has been raised by Leckhampton Surgery, in fact, when they put out a statement to their patients last year, very understandably, warning them that it would be more difficult to get an appointment, although I understand that those issues have now largely been dealt with because they've been able to recruit. However, what they said was that there were failures in A&E, in health and social care, that were storing up problems for GP practices. Councillor Fisher, you gave us a case study there in what was going wrong with your own health there, and that is something that's experienced by huge numbers of people. Last time I was in A&E, Gloucestershire Royal, there were people who were walking wounded, and they'd been in there. They were saying, you know, I've been in here for 19 hours, 20 hours, 24 hours, and they were in the similar position with drips, albeit I didn't see any taped to walls, I have to say. That sounds like an extreme thing even for Gloucestershire Royal, but clearly these are not unusual circumstances for people to find them in. They find themselves in at A&E, and you know, look after yourself. You're not coming next month, nor am I, but look after yourself in your retirement. And Councillor Collins, the two case studies there of members of your family who have decided to leave the GP profession to go and do other stuff. It makes the point, doesn't it? If we don't value the GPs and the doctors and the nurses and other people in the healthcare system, and particularly GPs who are footloose because they're able to go and get jobs elsewhere, they're very highly qualified people, then they will do the obvious thing. If you have an opportunity to go and earn more money elsewhere and have a nicer life, why wouldn't you? So, we do have all kinds of issues here. This motion in itself is not going to solve all of our problems. But as a local authority, we know that we must do everything we can to try to make things better for the local population. And I think by planning as we are here, and we're asking our officers to go away and do some work and report back in a few months' time, I think we can help. It's not going to solve all of our problems, but it might take the edge off some of them. So thank you very much for all supporting it. I'm sure you will.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. With that, we go to the vote. Okay, thank you, councillors. That is carried with 23 votes in favour, 5 abstentions. Okay, we are now on to item 14. Any other item the Mayor determines as urgent? There is nothing there. So that takes us on to item 15, which, bear with me whilst I read out the exempt information paragraph. That in accordance with section 100A(4) Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining agenda items, as it is likely that, in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings, if members of the public are present, there will be disclosed to them exempt information as defined in paragraph 3, part 1, schedule 12A, Local Government Act 1972. Namely, paragraph 3, information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. Could we have a vote on that to exclude members of the public?